Welcome to the New Chemists podcast. We are so glad you are listening.
Welcome to the New Chemist podcast.
Bienvenidos al podcast del nuevo químico.
Καλώς ήρθατε στο podcast του New Chemist. Welkom bij de podcast van The New Chemist.
Bienvenue sur le podcast du nouveau chimiste.
Bem-vindo ao podcast do novo químico.
Welcome to the New Chemist podcast. Work hard. Be value driven. You can do it. You can grow and learn it. You can be the difference you and your community needs. Don't give up. We are here rooting and cheering for you. Don't give up.
Travaillez dur. Soyez axés sur la valeur. Tu peux le faire. Vous pouvez grandir et l'apprendre. Vous pouvez être la différence dont vous et votre communauté avez besoin. N'abandonnez pas. Nous sommes ici pour vous encourager et vous encourager. N'abandonnez pas.
Trabalhar duro. Seja orientado por valores. Você consegue. Você pode crescer e aprender. Você pode ser a diferença que você e sua comunidade precisam. Não desista. Estamos aqui torcendo e torcendo por você. Não desista.
Δούλεψε σκληρά. Να οδηγείτε στην αξία. Μπορείς να το κάνεις. Μπορείτε να μεγαλώσετε και να το μάθετε. Μπορείτε να είστε η διαφορά που χρειάζεστε εσείς και η κοινότητά σας. Μην τα παρατάς. Είμαστε εδώ για να σας ζητοκραυγάσουμε. Μην τα παρατάς.
Trabaja duro. Sea impulsado por el valor. Puedes hacerlo. Puedes crecer y aprenderlo. Usted puede ser la diferencia que usted y su comunidad necesitan. No te rindas, estamos aquí animándote y animándote. No te rindas.
Werk hard. Wees waardegedreven. Je kunt het. Je kunt groeien en leren. U kunt het verschil zijn dat u en uw gemeenschap nodig hebben. Geef niet op. We zijn hier om voor je te roten en te juichen. Geef niet op.
Work hard. Be value driven. You can do it. You can grow and learn it. You can be the difference you and your community needs. Don't give up. We are here rooting and cheering for you. Don't give up. Thanks for listening. We're glad you were able to tune into this podcast. Once again, this is The New Chemist, where we discuss chemistry, which simply put is the science of change, as well as the other sciences, careers, community, research, and COVID-19. Thanks again for listening. Note, the views on this podcast represent those of my guest and I.
Note, purpose of these episodes not at all for advice or medical suggestions. These are aimed to provide support for peer pharmacists in training in educational and intellectual stimulating ways. Again, these are not at all for medical advice or for medical suggestions. Please see your local state and board certified physician, PA or NP, and pharmacist for medical advice and suggestions. The views in this podcast represent those of my guest, S, and I. Top 300 drugs and their indications. 1 Lortab, hydrocodone/acetaminophen opioid. Pain. 2 Vicodin, hydrocodone/acetaminophen opioid. Pain. 3 Lorcet, hydrocodone/acetaminophen opioid. Pain. 4 Norco, hydrocodone/acetaminophen opioid. Pain. 5 Synthroid, levothyroxine. T4. Hypothyroidism. 6 Levoxyl, levothyroxine T4. Hypothyroidism. 7 Levothyroid, levothyroxine T4. Hypothyroidism. 8 Prinival, lisinopril. ACI. Hypertension/proteinuria. 9 Zestril, lisinopril ACI hypertension/proteinuria. 10 Xanax, alprazolam benzo. Anxiety. 11 Fortamate, metformin biguanide. Diabetes. 12 Glumetza, metformin biguanide. Diabetes. 13 Glucophage, metformin biguanide. Diabetes. 14 Lasix, furosemide loop diuretic hypertension/edema. 15 Prilosec, omeprazole. PPI GERD. 16 Zocor, simvastatin HGM-CoA reductase inhibitor dyslipidemia. 17 Livalo, pitavastatin HGM-CoA reductase inhibitor dyslipidemia. 18 Lescal, fluvastatin, HGM-CoA reductase inhibitor. Dyslipidemia. Take at bedtime. 19 Lipitor, atorvastatin HGM-CoA reductase inhibitor dyslipidemia. 20 Norvasc, amlodipine DHP calcium channel blocker hypertension. 21 Prevental, albuterol short-acting beta agonist rescue inhaler. 22 Ventolin, albuterol, short-acting beta agonist, rescue inhaler. 23 ProAir, albuterol short-acting beta agonist rescue inhaler. 24 Ambien, zolpidem imidazopyridine sleep. 25 Celexa, citalopram, SSRI anxiety/depression. 26 Hydrodiurol, hydrochlorothiazide diuretic. Hypertension. 27 Neurontin, gabapentin, GABA analog. Nerve pain epilepsy. 28 Zantac, ranitidine H2RA. GERD. 29 Ultram, tramadol central acting analgesic pain. 30 Bayer's, aspirin. NSAID pain/inflammation/antiplatelet. 31 Ecitrin, aspirin. NSAID. Pain/inflammation/antiplatelet. 32 K-Dur, potassium supplement potassium. Low potassium. 33 Chlorcon, potassium supplement potassium. Low potassium. 34 Clonopin, clonazepam. Benzo. Anxiety/depression. 35 Coumadin, warfarin anticoagulant. 36 Yantoven, warfarin anticoagulant. 37 Singulaire, montelukast. Oral leukotriene receptor antagonist asthma/respiratory/also seasonal allergic rhinitis. 38 Low pressor, metoprolol tartrate selective BB. Hypertension/HF. 39 Amrix, cyclobenzaprine muscle relaxant. muscle relaxer. 40 Flexeril, cyclobenzaprine muscle relaxant. Muscle relaxer. 41 Fexmid, cyclobenzaprine muscle relaxant. Muscle relaxer. 42 Seroquel, quishapine fumarate atypical antipsychotics schizophrenia/bipolar. 43 Plavix, clopidogrel. Antiplatelet. Stroke prevention. 44 Oxycontin, oxycodone opioid. Pain. 45 Deserol, trazodone tetracyclic antidepressant. Labeled for depression but usually sedative off-label. 46 Coreg, carvedilol. 47 Mevacor, lavastidine HMO-CoA reductase inhibitor dyslipidemia. 48 Zoloft, sertraline. SSRI. Anxiety/depression. 49 Cymbalta, duloxetine. SNRI anxiety/depression. 50 Percocet, Roxyset, Endocet, oxycodone/acetaminophen CII opioid. Pain. 51 Advair, fluticasone propionate/salmeterol zinafate bronchodilator. Asthma/COPD. 52 Lantus, insulin glargine, rDNA origin, insulin. Diabetes. 53 Toujeo, insulin glargine, rDNA origin, insulin. Diabetes. 300 units/ml. 54 Simlin, Simlin pen, pramlintide analog of amylin hormone diabetes. Do not give if skip a meal. 55 Toprol XL, metoprolol succinate cardioselective BB. HTN. 56 Zebita, bisoprolol. 57 Zithromax, Zmax, azithromycin macrolide. Bacterial infections. 58 Prozac, Floxidin. SSRI. Anxiety/depression. 59 Effexor, venlafaxine. SNRI anxiety/depression/nerve pain. 60 Tenormin, atenolol cardioselective BB-HTN. 61 Eleval, amitriptyline. SNRI. Anxiety/depression/nerve pain. 62 Combivent, ipratropium bromide/albuterol sulfate, MDI, COPD asthma. 63 Wellbutrin, bupropion. Norepinephrine dopamine reuptake inhibitor antidepressant/smoking aid. 64 Zyban, bupropion. Norepinephrine dopamine reuptake inhibitor antidepressant/smoking aid. 65 Nexium, esomeprazole. PPI GERD. 66 Ativan, lorazepam benzo anxiety/panic attacks. 67 Tricor, fenofibrate fibrate dyslipidemia/triglycerides. Take with food cc. 68 Lexapro, escitalopram. SSRI anxiety/depression. 69 Flonase, fluticasone propionate nasal corticosteroid. Nasal congestion. 70 Deltasone, prednisone. Steroid. Inflammation/allergy/immunosuppression. 71 Depakote, D-valproex valproic acid seizure/bipolar. 72 Catapress, clonidine alpha agonist hypertension/sedative/ADHD. 73 Aldamate, methyl-dopa alpha agonist hypertension. 74 Cardizem, diltiazem. CCB. HTN and angina. 75 Karsha, diltiazem. 76 Tiazac, diltiazem. CCB. HTN and angina. 77 Soma, carisoprodol carbamate. Muscle relaxer. 78 Risperdal, risperidone atypical antipsychotic schizophrenia/antipsychotic. 79 Mobic, meloxicam. NSAID anti-inflammatory. 80 Detrol, tolterodine cholinergic incontinence. 81 Topamax, topiramate anticonvulsant seizure/nerve pain. 82 Motrin, ibuprofen. NSAID pain/inflammation. 83 Amoxil, amoxicillin trihydrate penicillin. Bacterial infection. 84 Trimox, amoxicillin trihydrate penicillin. Bacterial infection. 85 Moxitog, amoxicillin trihydrate penicillin. Bacterial infection. 86 Naproxen, naproxen. 87 Zestoretic, lisinopril/hydrochlorothiazide ACE inhibitor and thiazide diuretic. HTN. 88 Prinzide, lisinopril/hydrochlorothiazide ACE inhibitor and thiazide diuretic. HTN. 89 Reglan, metoclopramide. Prokinetic. Nacia/GERD. 90 Bactrim, sulfamethoxazole/trimethoprim sulfur antibiotic. Bacterial infection. 91 Septra, sulfamethoxazole/trimethoprim sulfur antibiotic. Bacterial infection. 92 Actose, pioglitazone. Thiazolidinediens. Diabetes. 93 Abilify, aripiprazole atypical antipsychotic schizophrenia/antipsychotic. 94 Fosamax, alendronate bisphosphonate osteoporosis. 95 Spiriva, Schiotropium bromide inhalation bronchodilator. COPD. 96 Flomax, Tamsulosin. Alpha blocker. BPH. 97 Lyrica, pregabalin anticonvulsant nerve pain. 98 Micronase, glyburide sulfonylurea. Diabetes. 99 Diabeta, glyburide sulfonylurea diabetes. 100 Aricept, dunpazilcholine's teres inhibitor Alzheimer's. 101 Crestor, rosuvastatin HGMO-CoA reductase inhibitor dyslipidemia. 102 Valium, diazepam benzo anxiety/panic attacks. 103 Aldactone, spironolactone potassium sparing diuretic. HFHTN. 104 Inspra, eplerenone potassium sparing diuretic. HFHTN. 105 Bistolich, nebivolol. 106 Texturna, aliskiren and HCDZ. 107 Volturna, aliskiren and valsartan. 108 Protonix, pantoprazole. 109 Lamictal, lamotrigine antiepileptic. Seizure. 110 Copinex, lavalbuterol. Laba-asthma/COPD. 111 Glucotrol, Glucotrol XL, glipizide. Sulf diabetes. 112 Allegra, fexofenadine antihistamine. Hives itching allergy. 113 Pravachol, pravastatin. HGMO-CoA reductase. Dyslipidemia. 114 Premarin, estrogens conjugated cream estrogen. Menopause. 115 Imdur, ISMO, isosorbide mononitrate nitrate. Angina HTN. 116 Monokete, isosorbide mononitrate nitrate. Angina HTN. 117 Iserdil, dilatrate, isosorbide dinonitrate nitrate. Angina HTN. 118 Cipro, ciprofloxacin. Fluoroquinolone. Bacterial infection. 119 Diazide, triamterene/hydrochlorothiazide diuretic. HTN. 120 Maxide, triamterene/hydrochlorothiazide diuretic. HTN. 121 Phenergan, promethazine. Antihistamine. Allergies, pain, nausea. 122 Xyloprim, allopurinol xanthine oxidase inhibitors gout. 123 Nitrostat, nitroglycerin nitrates. Angina. 124 Nitroquick, nitroglycerin nitrates. Angina. 125 Prevacid, lansoprazole. PPI GERD. 126 Paxil, paroxetine. SSRI. Anxiety/depression. 127 Pexiva, paroxetine. SSRI anxiety/depression. 128 vibramycin, doxycycline tetracycline antibiotics. Bacterial infection. 129 vibratabs, doxycycline tetracycline antibiotics. Bacterial infection. 130 Adderall, amphetamine/dextroamphetamine salts CII amphetamine. ADHD. 131 Novolog, insulin aspart, rDNA origin. Insulin. Diabetes. 132 Namenda, memantine NMDA receptor blocker Alzheimer's. 133 Duragesic, fentanyl transdermal opioid. Chronic pain. 134 Remeron, mirtazapine. SNRI. Anxiety/depression. 135 Zacia, ezetimibe cholesterol absorption inhibitor dyslipidemia. 136 Celebrex, Celecoxib. NSAID pain/inflammation. 137 Diovan, valsartan angiotensin reductase inhibitor. HTN. 138 Atarax, hydroxyzine HCl, ODC, antihistamine. Sleep, itching allergy anxiety. 139 Unisom, doxylamine antihistamine. Sleep. 140 Inderal, propranolol non-selective BB hypertension/HF. 141 Brevibloc, esmolol. 142 Inopran XL, propranolol non-selective BB hypertension/HF. 143 Lanoxin, digoxin cardiac glycoside arrhythmia and HF. 144 Lanoxicaps, digoxin cardiac glycoside arrhythmia and HF. 145 Digitec, digoxin cardiac glycoside arrhythmia and HF. 146 Drisdol, vitamin D2, ergocalciferol inactive vitamin D. Bone health. 147 Ricotrol, vitamin D3, calcitriol active vitamin D. Bone health. 148 Amaryl, glympyride. Sulfuria. Diabetes. 149 Prandon, repaglinide miglatinides. Rapid-acting glinides. 150 Starlix, nateglinide miglatinides. Rapid-acting glinides. 151 Vitarin, ezetimibe/simvastatin cholesterol absorption inhibitor and HGMO-CoA cholesterol. 152 Folate, folic acid. Folic acid deficiency/megaloblastic anemia. 153 Folacin, folic acid B vitamin. Folic acid deficiency/megaloblastic anemia. 154 Pteroyl glutamine acid, folic acid B vitamin. Folic acid deficiency/megaloblastic anemia. 155 Keflex, cephalexin monohydrate cef antibiotic. Bacterial infection. 156 Vasotec, enalapril maleate. ACI. HTN. 157 Buspir, buspirone azapirone. Anxiety. 158 Tegretol, carbamazepine antiepileptic. Seizure/nerve pain. 159 Carbatrol, carbamazepine antiepileptic. Seizure/nerve pain. 160 Ecatrol, carbamazepine antiepileptic. Seizure/nerve pain. 161 Cozar, losartan potassium. ARB-HTN. 162 Ritalin, methylene, metadate, methylphenidate phenethylamine and piperidine. ADHD. 163 Ditropan, oxybutynin chloride, oral, antispasmodic. Overactive bladder. 164 Ms Contin, morphine sulfate extended release opioid. Pain. 165 Slow Fe, ferrous sulfate. Iron. Anemia. 166 Lidoderm, lidocaine transdermal amide local anesthetic. Pain for local area. 167 Niferex, iron polysaccharide. Iron. Anemia. 168 Cinemet, carbidopa/levodopa dopaminergic agent. Parkinson's. 169 Duopa, carbidopa/levodopa dopaminergic agent. Enteral suspension. 170 Riteri, carbidopa/levodopa dopaminergic agent. Cap. 171 Stalevo, levodopa/carbidopa and entacapone, Compton. 172 Xanaflex, tizanidine. Centrally acting ±2 adrenergic agonist. Muscle spasms muscle relaxant. 173 Lyresil, baclofen muscle relaxant. 174 Isoptin, verapamil non-DHP-CCB. HTN, angina. 175 Calin, verapamil non-DHP-CCB HTN, angina. 176 Verolen, verapamil non-DHP-CCB. HTN, angina. 177 Requip, ropinrole dopamine agonist Parkinson's. 178 Scalaxin, metaxalone muscle relaxant. Muscle relaxer, pain. 179 Restoril, temazepam benzo. Anxiety. 180 Bentyl, dicyclamine gut antispasmodic. IBS. 181 Serux, oxazepam benzo. Anxiety. 182 Vistaril, hydroxyzine pamoate antihistamine. Anxiety itching. 183 Dilantin, phenytoin sodium extended anticonvulsant. Seizure. 184 Capsules, phenytoin sodium extended anticonvulsant. Seizure. 185 Diovan HCT, valsartan/hydrochlorothiazide ARB plus thiazide. HTN. 186 Diflucan, fluconazole. Antifungal. 187 Humulin, insulin diabetes. 188 Flovent, fluticasone propionate inhalation steroid and decongestant. 189 Lotrel, amlodipine/benazepril. 190 Xforge, amlodipine/valsartan. CCB/ARB HTN. 191 Azor, amlodipine/olmesartan. CCB/ARB HTN. 192 Phenaphan with codeine, acetaminophen/codeine. Pain. 193 Tylenol No. 3, acetaminophen/codeine. Pain. 194 Trileptal, oxcarbazepine anticonvulsant. Seizure. 195 Lithinate, lithium carbonate mood stabilizer. Bipolar disorder. 196 Lithotabs, lithium carbonate mood stabilizer. Bipolar disorder. 197 Lithobid, lithium carbonate mood stabilizer. Bipolar disorder. 198 Mirapex, pramipexole dihydrochloride dopamine agonist. Parkinson's and restless leg. 199 Nistop, Nistadin topical. Antifungal. Fungal infection. 200 Nasonex, Momtasone furoate monohydrate intranasal nasal congestion/allergic rhinitis. 201 Augmentin, amoxicillin/clavulinate potassium bacterial infection. 202 Estrace, estradiol. Menopause. 203 Lotensin, benazepril. ACI. HTN. 204 Tessalin, benzonatate antitussive. Cough. 205 Kenalog, triamcinolone acetonide topical corticosteroid. Itching/rash. 206 Altase, ramipril. ACI. 207 Levaquin, levofloxacin fluoroquinolone. Bacterial infection. 208 Keppra, levetiracetam antiepileptic. Seizure. 209 Geodon, ziprasidone antipsychotic. Always take with food, similar to lurecidone. 210 Latuda, lurecidone antipsychotic. Always take with food, similar to ziprasidone. 211 Fanapt, eloperidone. Antipsychotic. Same QT prolongation risk as ziprasidone. 212 Prolixin, flufenazine first generation antipsychotic. If decanoate is the salt, 2 to 4 weeks. 213 Humalog, insulin lispro, rDNA origin diabetes. 214 Methodos, methadone. Pain/opioid withdrawal. 215 Apidra, insulin glycine diabetes. 216 Lopid, gemfibrozil fibrate cholesterol/triglyceride. Take 3 hours before breakfast and dinner. 217 Benicar, olmesartan midoxamil. 218 Fioricet, butalbital/acetaminophen/caffeine migraine. 219 Medrol, methylprednisolone. Steroid. Inflammation/rash/allergies. 220 Pepsid, famotidine H2 blocker. GERD. 221 Lunsta, esopiclone sedative. Insomnia. 222 Ultracet, tramadol/acetaminophen. Pain. 223 Trexal, methotrexate. Daily for cancer, weekly for RA. 224 Januvia, sitagliptin DPP4 inhibitors diabetes. 225 Cardura, doxazosin. ±1 selective alpha blocker. 226 Javicinc, sitagliptin and simvastatin. 227 Janumet, sitagliptin and metformin. 228 Minipress, prazosin. ±1 selective alpha blocker. BPH and HTN. 229 Hitrin, terazosin. ±1 selective alpha blocker. 230 Benicar HCT, olmesartan midoxamil/hydrochlorothiazide ARB and thiazide. HTN. 231 Actinol, risdronate. Bisphosphonate. Osteoporosis. 232 Imitrex, sumatriptan migraine. 233 Lomotil, diphenoxylate/atropine centrally active opioid. Diarrhea. 234 Antivert, Dramamine, meclizine nausea. 235 Cogentin, benztropine Parkinson's. 236 Feldene, piroxicam. NSAID. Anti-inflammatory/pain. 237 Clezin, clindamycin oral lincosamide. Bacterial infection. 238 Zovirax, acyclovir herpes, shingles chickenpox. 239 Procardia, nifedipine. DHPCCB-HTN. 240, nifedipine, nifedipine. DHPCCB-HTN. 241 Autolat, nifedipine. DHPCCB-HTN. 242 Bumex, bumetanide diuretic HTN. 243 Vesicare, sulfasalazine bladder relaxant overactive bladder. 244 Acupril, quinapril. ACE. HTN. 245 Trivara, trifazole, Inpress, levonorgestrel/ethinyl estradiol contraceptive. 246 Avandia, rosiglitazone. Thiazolidinediene. Diabetes. 247 Phenergan with codeine, promethazine/codeine cold medicine. Opioid with HH1 antihistamine. 248 Glucovance, glyburide/metformin. Sulfenbiguanide. Diabetes. 249 Novolin 70/30ths, insulin Novolin diabetes. Insulin. 250 Metaglip, glipizide/metformin sulfenbiguanide. Diabetes. 251 Tricycline, tricycline low, trisprintac, trinessa, norgestimate/ethanylistra. Diol contraceptive. 252 Zyprexa, olanzapine. Schizophrenia/antipsychotic. 253 Yasmin, Ocella, drospirenone/ethanyl estradiol birth control. 254 Voltaren, diclofenac sodium oral, can also be gel for pain. NSAID. Anti-inflammatory and pain. 255 Agrenox, dipyridamole/aspirin. Antiplatelet to prevent stroke. 256 Boniva, ibandronate bisphosphonate osteoporosis. 257 Compazine, prochlorperazine phenothiazine class antipsychotic, anti-nausea and anxiety. 258 Compro, prochlorperazine phenothiazine class antipsychotic, anti-nausea and anxiety. 259 Bactroban, mupirocin. Antibiotic for skin infections. 260, Macrodantin, nitrofurantoin and antibiotic for UTI. 261 Furidantin, nitrofurantoin and antibiotic for UTI. 262 Macrobid, nitrofurantoin and antibiotic for UTI. 263 Lotrazone, clotrimazole/betamethasone dipropionate steroid/antifungal. It can treat fungal infections. 264 Flagyl, metronidazole. Antibiotic. 265 Robaxin, methocarbamol muscle relaxant. It can treat muscle spasms and pain. 266 Tussionex, chlorpheniramine/hydrocodone antihistamine/narcotic and narcotic. It can treat cough. 267 Evista, raloxifene. Estrogen modulator. Osteoporosis. 268 Provigil, modafinil stimulant for narcolepsy. 269 Nuvigil, modafinil stimulant for narcolepsy. 270 Carafate, sucralfate antacid. It can treat ulcers. 271 Enablx, darafenicin overactive bladder. 272 Nispan, niacin. Cholesterol medication and vitamin. It can treat high cholesterol and triglyceride levels as well as niacin deficiency. 273 Astelin, azelastine nasal itchy stuffy runny nose. 274 Relafin, nabumetone NSAID, anti-inflammatory, it can treat pain and arthritis. 275 Valtrax, valacyclovir herpes shingles, chickenpox. 276 Armour thyroid, thyroid, desicat, T3 and T4 hypothyroid. 277 Zofran, ondansetron. Nausea/vomiting. 278 Acefex, rabeprazole. PPI GERD. 279 Sinequin, doxepin. TCA anxiety/depression. 280 Theocron, Theo24, theophylline anhydrous asthma, emphysema COPD. 281 Chantix, varenicline tartrate. Smoking cessation. 282 Dimoptic, timolol maleate ophthalmic non-selective BB. 283 Betopic, betaxolol. Ophthalmic. Selective BB. 284 Ocupress, cartiolol ophthalmic selective BB. 285 Omnicef, cefdinir. Antibiotic. 286 Levemir, insulin detemir diabetes. 287 Pristic, desvenlafaxine antidepressant. 288 Biota, exenatide. GLP-1 agonist. Diabetes. 289 Lavazza, omega-3 acid ethyl esters triglyceride. 290 Mycardis, telmisartan. ARB. HTN. 291 Zalatan, latanoprost glaucoma. 292 Stratera, atomoxetine. SNRI ADHD. 293 Vedids, Pen-VK, Vicillin, Penicillin V potassium. 294 Pen-VK, Penicillin V potassium. 295 Vicillin, Penicillin V potassium. 296 Atripla, Efavirenz, Emtricitabine, Tenofovir disoproxyl fumarate. HIV. 297 Plaquenil, hydroxychloroquine sulfate. Malaria in third world countries, RA, and lupus in first world. 298 Xeroxilin, metolazone thiazide diuretic. 299 Thalidone, chlorthalidone thiazide diuretic. 300 Proscar, finasteride. BPH. 301 Metussin AC, codeine/guaifenesin cough. 302 Robitussin AC, codeine/guaifenesin cough. 303 Monopril, fosinapril. ACEI. HTN and HF. 304 Prem-Pro, estrogen, conjugated, /medroxyprogesterone acetate estrogen replacement therapy for hot flashes caused by menopause. 305 Patanol, olopatadine ophthalmic. Eye allergic conjunctivitis. 306 Pataday, olopatadine ophthalmic eye allergic conjunctivitis. 307 Mavic, Trandolapril. ACIHTN. 308 Viveldot, estradiol topical hormone replacement. 309 Luminol, phenobarbital barabuate. Sedative. 310 Sulfaton, phenobarbital barabuate. Sedative. 311 Vicoprofen, hydrocodone/ibuprofen opioid. Pain. 312 Orthocycline, Sprintac, Norc estimate/ethinyl estradiol contraceptive. 313 Avalide, irbesartan/hydrochlorothiazide. 314 Hizar, losartan/hydrochlorothiazide ARB and HCTC for HTN. 315 Plendil, felodipine. 316 Yaz, drospirenone/ethinyl estradiol contraceptive. 317 Pulmicort, budesonide inhalation steroid. Asthma. 318 Travatin, Travatin Z, travoprost glaucoma. 319 Zezil, levocetirizine. Antihistamine for allergy. 320 Nasacort AQ, triamcinolone acetonide intranasal allergy symptoms. 321 Loestrin FE, microgestin FE, Junal FE, norethindrone/ethinyl estradiol/ferrous fumarate. Contraceptive. 322 Adipex P, phentermine. Appetite suppression for obesity. 323 Ionamine, phentermine appetite suppression for obesity. 324 Cortisone, amiodarone potassium channel blocker antiarrhythmic. 325 Pacerone, amiodarone potassium channel blocker antiarrhythmic. 326 Nizoral, ketoconazole antifungal. 327 Avapro, irbesartan. 328 Pamelor, nortriptyline SNRI for depression. 329 Arimidex, anastrozole estrogen for cancer. 330 Avalox, moxifloxacin fluoroquinolone. 331 Tamiflu, oseltamivir flu vaccine. 332 Viagra, sildenafil citrate. Ed. 333 Apreoline, hydralazine. HTN. 334 Vivance, lisdexamfetamine dimesylate. ADHD. 335 Alphagan P, brimonidine tartrate. Glaucoma. Also it can treat facial redness caused by rosacea in its topical form. 336 Lidex, fluocinamide topical steroid. It can treat many skin disorders. It can also relieve pain, itching, and swelling of the skin. 337 Nistadin oral, Nistadin oral. This medication is used to treat fungal infections of the mouth. 338 Minicin, minocycline tetracycline antibiotic. 339 Levsin, Levbid, Levsinex, hyoscyamine gut spasmodic for IBS. 340 Levbid, hyoscyamine, gut spasmodic for IBS. 341 Levsinex, hyoscyamine gut spasmodic for IBS. 342 Chalice, tadalafil. 343 Cosopt, dorzolamide/timolol maleate non-selective BB. 344 Pyridium, phenazopyridine. Urinary tract pain. 345 Peridex, chlorhexidine gluconate. Chlorhexidine is an antibacterial used as an antiseptic and for other applications. 346 Periogard, chlorhexidine gluconate. Chlorhexidine is an antibacterial used as an antiseptic and for other applications. 347 Lumigan, Bimetoprost anti-glaucoma. It can reduce pressure inside the eye in its eye drops form. As an eyelash solution, it can help eyelashes grow. 348 Nuvaring, etinogestrol/ethinyl estradiol vaginal. Contraceptive. 349 Prometrium, progesterone oral menopause. 350 Lamisil, terbinafine. Antifungal. 351 Vigamox, moxifloxacin ophthalmic bacterial conjunctivitis. 352 Submicin, tetracycline. Antibiotic. 353 Panmicin, tetracycline antibiotic. 354 Timovate, clobetasol propionate topical steroid itching redness. 355 Provera, medroxyprogesterone acetate contraceptive or endometrial pain. 356 Overal, low/overal, ogestrol, Cries-L, norgestrol with ethinyl estradiol contraceptive. 357 Biaxin, clarithromycin. Macrolide antibiotic. 358 Demedex, torsemide diuretic. Edema or HTN. 359 Indocin, indomethacin NSAID, anti-inflammatory, it can treat pain. 360 Atacand, candesartan Selexetyl ARB for HTN. 361 Allegra D, fexofenadine/pseudoephedrine allergy and congestion. 362 Normidine, labetalol. Non-selective BB. HTN. 363 Trandate, labetalol non-selective BB. HTN. 364 Rest ASIS, cyclosporin emulsion ophthalmic. Immunosuppressive agent used to treat chronic dry eye caused from inflammation. 365 Mycardis HCT, telmisartan/hydrochlorothiazide ARB plus thiazide for HTN. 366 Tenoretic, atenolol with chlorthalidone cardioselective BB plus diuretic. 367 Mycolog 2, nistidine/triamcinolone acetonide fungal skin infection and inflammation caused by it. 368 Desogen, Apri, Orthocept, desogestrol with ethinyl estradiol contraceptive. 369 Orapred, prednisolone sodium phosphate. Inflammation, multiple sclerosis, and arthritis. 370 Zymer, gatafloxacin ophthalmic bacterial conjunctivitis. 371 Levitra, vardenafil. Ed. 372 Staxin, vardenafil. Ed. 373 Suboxone, buprenorphine/naloxone opioid withdrawal. 374 Decadron, dexamethasone oral. Inflammation, allergic reactions, and flare UPS of ulcerative colitis. 375 Veramist, fluticasone furoate nasal allergy, congestion, sneezing, itching. 376 Ciprodex, ciprofloxacin/dexamethasone otic treat outer ear infections. 377 Focalin, dexmethylphenidate. 378 Lotensin HCT, benazepril/hydrochlorothiazide ACE and thiazide for HTN. 379 Elocun, Mometasone Furode Topical. Eczema, psoriasis, allergies, and rash. 380 Clarinex, Desloratadine Antihistamine. It can treat or prevent hives, allergy symptoms. 381 Nolvadex, Tamoxifen Citrate. 382 Duoneb, Ipratropium bromide with albuterol sulfate solution bronchodilator. It can treat COPD. 383 Concerta, methylphenidate. 384 Oxy-IR, oxycodone IR opioid. Pain. 385 Roxicodone, oxycodone IR opioid. Pain. 386 Miralax, polyethylene glycol 3350, NF osmotic laxative. 387 Glycolax, polyethylene glycol 3350, NF osmotic laxative. 388 Zyac, bisoprolol/hydrochlorothiazide selective BB/thiazide diuretic. HTN. 389 Loestrin 24Fe, norethindrone acetate, ethinyl estradiol, ferrous fumarate contraceptive. 390 Colchris, colchicine. 391 Avodart, dutasteride. BPH. 392 Ceftin, cefuroxime oral cef antiobic. 393 Ales, Avianide, levonorgestrel with ethinyl estradiol contraceptive. 394 Mercet, Carava, desogestrel with ethinyl estradiol contraceptive. 395 Nikon 135th, Ortho Novum 135th, norethindrone and ethinyl estradiol contraceptive. 396 Prevnar, pneumococcal vaccine. 397 Lupron, Luprolide. GnRH agonist. Prostate cancer. 398 Zolacard, Gosrelin GnRH agonist prostate cancer. 399 Zytiga, abiraterone androgen biosynthesis inhibitors, prostate cancer. 400 Cazadex, bicalutamide first generation anti-androgen prostate cancer. 401 Firmagon, Degarelix GnRH antagonist, prostate cancer. 402 Ranaxa, ranolazine. Add-on therapy for stable angina. Reduce oxygen demand, reduce number of attacks. 403 Nimotop, nimodipine non-DHPCCB hemorrhagic stroke. 404 Cardine, nicardipine. CCB. For hypertensive therapy in ischemic stroke patient, labetalol is other option. 405 Osmitrol, mannitol hemorrhagic stroke. 406 Invokana, canagliflozin SGLT2. Diabetes. 407 Farxiga, dapagliflozin SGLT2. Diabetes. 408 Jardiance, empagliflozin SGLT2. Diabetes. 409 Precose, acarbose alpha glucosidase inhibitor diabetes. No meal, no drugs. 410 Glycet, miglitol. Alpha glucosidase inhibitor. Diabetes. No meal, no drugs. 411 Envirase, Scarinavir mesylate not Scarinavir soft gel capsule. Sources for this episode include WHO publications, drug manuals, medicine handbooks, journals in compendium. Pharmacology, basics. 1. Pharmacology, body of knowledge concerned with the actions of chemicals on biological systems. 2. Medical pharmacology, use of chemicals in prevention, diagnosis and treatment of disease. 3. Toxicology, concerned with undesirable effects of chemicals on biological systems. 4. Pharmacokinetics, what the body does to the drug, absorption, distribution, metabolism, excretion. 5. Pharmacodynamics, what the drug does to the body. 6. Onset of action, how much of drug comes into circulation to produce effect, determined by route of administration and drug dosage, when you increase drug dosage, the concentration of drug in the blood will also increase. 7. Duration of action is affected by drug dosage. Higher the dosage, rate of distribution, rate of metabolism, rate of excretion. 4. Minimum effective concentration, amount of drug required to produce a therapeutic effect. 5. Duration of action, time between the rise to the decline at minimum effective concentration for therapeutic effect. 6. Mechanism of drug action, drug cannot produce any new action in the body, can act on enzymes, ion channels, upregulate or downregulate a system within the body. Effect physiology on the cells but do not produce new actions in body. 15. Ligands, signal molecules. 16. Ra, receptor existing in an active state. 17. Ri, receptor existing in an inactive state. 18. External receptor site, ligand binds outside plasma membrane and produces change inside the cell. 19. Internal receptor site, drug goes inside the cell, binds to receptor inside the cell, moves to nucleus, to produce desired effect. 20. Mechanisms of agonist-mediated activation, ion channels. G protein-coupled receptors. Receptor tyrosine kinase. Intracellular hormone receptors. 17. Ion channel, ligand-gated voltage-gated. Second messenger regulated. 1/6. Pharmacology, basics. 18. Ligand-gated ion channel, drug binds to ion channel, activating it to open, sodium enters triggering an action potential. 19. Voltage-gated ion channel, change in charge, potential, between inside the cell and outside the cell causes the channels to open to maintain internal homeostasis. Inside the cell the charge is between -70 MV to -90 MV to open the gate to maintain internal homeostasis. 20. Second messenger regulated, various second messengers that regulate certain channels by opening and closing them. Calcium, CAMP. CAMP cause activation of enzyme which triggers signal transduction pathway. 21. G protein coupled receptors, a signal receptor protein in the plasma membrane that responds to the binding of a signaling molecule by activating a G protein. Also called a G protein linked receptor. 22. Receptor tyrosine kinases. 1. Insulin binds to tyrosine kinase receptor. 2. Tyrosine kinase receptor undergoes autophosphorylation. 3. Insulin receptor is activated. 4. Downstream cascade of signals. 5. Final signal is to recruit glucose transporters, GLUT, move from cytosol to plasma membrane and take glucose into tissues for utilization or storage. 23. 3 amino acid with hydroxyl groups, serine, tyrosine, threonine. 24. Kinase, enzyme that causes phosphorylation. 25. Intracellular hormone receptor, mostly steroids, enter the cell easily because they are lipids, bind to receptors inside the cell in the cytoplasm, get activated, move to nucleus, cause DNA transcription, which leads to the formation of particular proteins. 26. Affinity, measure of tightness in which a drug binds to a receptor. 27. Intrinsic activity, ability of a drug to activate a receptor upon binding. 28. Agonist, a drug that mimics the action of endogenous ligand. 29. Primary agonist, drug binds to the same recognition site as the endogenous agonist. 30. Orthosteric site, primary binding site. 31. Allosteric agonist, bind to a different region on the receptor. 32. Antagonist, drugs that block or reduce the activity of the agonist, have affinity but no intrinsic activity. 33. Syntopic interaction, competition with agonist for the same/overlapping site. 2/6. Pharmacology, basics. 34. Physical antagonist, physically interacts and nullifies the action of the drug X, charcoal, good absorbent, binds to alkaloid to form a complex and will be excreted. 35. Chemical antagonist, drug forms compounds with other substances like Ca and Mg. X, tetracycline binds with Ca in milk and then will be eliminated. 36 Physiological antagonist, a drug that counters the effects of another by binding to a different receptor and causing opposing effects. Drug that produces an opposite action by binding to a different receptor. X. Adrenaline is a physiological antagonist to histamine because adrenaline causes bronchodilation and histamine causes bronchoconstriction. 37 Pharmacological antagonist, drug that binds to receptor and produces no effect, shows no intrinsic activity. 38 Partial agonist, a drug that binds to a receptor and causes a response that is less than that caused by a full agonist. 39 Inverse agonist, in the stomach histamine receptors are constitutively activated without a stimulus, so under normal conditions they are operating at 20%. Inverse agonist inhibits these receptors, bringing them down to 0%. 40 Competitive agonist, same binding site as agonist, resembles chemically with agonist, right shift on the dose-response curve, response depends on concentration. 41 Non-competitive agonist, different binding site of agonist, not resembled chemically, downward shift of DRC, increasing agonist concentration won't make a difference. 42 How do we activate receptor site? 1. Open or close ion channels. 2. Speed up or slow down transporters. 3. Increase or decrease enzyme activity. 43 Efficacy, maximum effect a drug can produce, can be measured with a graded dose-response curve. 44 Potency, amount of drug needed to produce a given effect. Determined by affinity of the receptor for the drug. 45 EC50, the dose required for an individual to experience 50% of the maximum effect. 46 ED50, dose required to produce a therapeutic effect in 50% of the population, median effective dose. 47 Therapeutic index, a ratio that compares the blood concentration at which a drug becomes toxic and the concentration at which the drug is effective. Pharmacology, basics. LD50/ED50. 10:1 Safer drug because it has wider therapeutic index. 3:1 More dangerous drugs, needs more attention because the therapeutic index is narrow. 48 LD50, median lethal dose. 49 Tolerance, reduced response to a drug after prolonged use, develops gradually over a long period of time. X. Alcoholics needs more alcohol on the second day to feel the same effect from the first, liver is accustomed to alcohol so the enzymes are ready. 50 Pharmacokinetic tolerance, enhanced enzymatic breakdown reduces the amount of drug reaching its site of action. X. Barbiturates, carbamazepine, induce their own metabolism, autometabolism, autodestruction, on frequent repeated use. 51 Pharmacodynamic tolerance, tolerance caused by altered nervous system sensitivity, change in receptors. Action of drug is reduced because of downregulation of receptors, meaning that receptor expression or the amount of receptor present will be less, receptor is not as active as before. Or desensitization of receptors, meaning that receptors will not function as well, proteins could go through post-translation modification, meaning that they will lose, for example, a sulfide due to drug use losing their function, some changes are reversible, others are not. And that internalization of receptors, so receptor will not be available. An exhaustion of mediators, depletion of catecholamine, norepinephrine. 52 Natural inherent tolerance, genetic makeup makes an individual resistant or will have more response to a drug. 53 Acquired tolerance, occurs on repeated use of drug. X. Tolerance develops to sedative action of chlorpromazine but not to its anti-seizure action. Pharmacology, basics. Tolerance occurs to sedative action of phenobarbital but not to its anti-epileptic action. 54 Cross-tolerance, development of tolerance to pharmacologically related drugs. X. Partial tolerance between morphine and barbiturates. Complete cross-tolerance between morphine and pethidine, same drug class. 55 Tachyphylaxis, type of tolerance that occurs rapidly within minutes or seconds, only takes a small concentration of drug to cause this. 56 Low, narrow, therapeutic index drugs, acetaminophen. theophylline, carbamazepine, digoxin, warfarin, lithium, phenytoin, gentamicin, vancomycin, antidepressants, tricyclic, insulin. 57 high, wide, therapeutic index drugs, NSAIDs benzodiazepines. Most antibiotics furosemide, SSRI. 58 nitroglycerin, can cause tolerance. As pharmacist you must tell the PT they need to have a 10 to 12 nitrate-free period to prevent tolerance. Causes vasodilation. 59 synergism, one drug is going to have an additive effect with another drug, increasing efficacy. Action of one drug is facilitated or increased by another drug. Or when one drug is inactive alone but active when combined with another. 60 additive, effect of two drugs in the same direction. X, amlodipine. Pharmacology, basics. 61 amlodipine and atenolol, antihypertensive. Amlodipine is a calcium channel blocker and atenolol is a beta blocker. Both work to reduce hypertension and act on different places in the heart. 62 glibenclamide and metformin, hypoglycemic. Glibenclamide is a sulfonylurea that increases insulin receptor sensitivity and causes secretion of insulin, acts on pancreas. Metformin acts on liver to control blood glucose level. 63 superadditive, potentiation effect of the combination is greater than the individual effects of each component. 64 acetylcholine and physostigmine, acetylcholine acts on muscle to produce effect. Physostigmine is inactive. Both are degraded by acetylcholinesterase. When acetylcholine is alone the enzyme will break it down quickly. When you have physostigmine with it the enzyme doesn't know which one to attack. Competition between the two so it increases the duration of acetylcholine. 65 levodopa and carbidopa. Levodopa treats Parkinson's disease by converting to dopamine to prevent movement disorder. When taken orally levodopa is converted to dopamine in the intestine causing adverse effects like nausea, vomiting. Give it with carbidopa which prevents the breakdown in the intestines so that it can be transported to the brain, cross the BBB, where it can be converted to dopamine to act on the basal ganglia. 66 sulfamethoxazole/trimethoprim, inhibits two enzymes in formation of tetrahydrofolic acid which is required for bacterial cell wall synthesis. If you want to kill the bacteria you need sulfamethoxazole to prevent the conversion of PABA to an intermediate product and then you need trimethoprim to prevent the conversion of the intermediate product to tetrahydrofolic acid. 67 enalapril/hydrochlorothiazide, enalapril, angiotensin converting inhibitor hydrochlorothiazide, diuretic. Acts on two different places to produce antihypertensive's effect. Drug stems. ANAB for angiogenesis inhibitors, e.g. pazopanib. Anseron. Anseron for serotonin receptor antagonists, especially 5-HT2 antagonists, e.g. ritonseron and mianseron. ANT for various receptors antagonists, e.g. adacaprant and rimonabant. ARIT for anti-arthritic agents, e.g. lobenzerit. ASE for enzymes, e.g. alteplase. Azepam. Azepam or azalam for benzodiazepines, e.g. diazepam and alprazolam. Cane for local anesthetics, e.g. procaine or cocaine. Cane for class I antiarrhythmics, e.g. procainamide. Coxib for COX-2 inhibitors, a type of anti-inflammatory drugs, e.g. celecoxib. MAB for monoclonal antibodies, e.g. infliximab, see nomenclature of monoclonal antibodies. NAB for cannabinoid receptor agonists, e.g. cannabidiol citation needed dronabinol. NABANT for cannabinoid receptor antagonists. NAVIR for antiretroviral protease inhibitors, e.g. darunavir. ALOL for beta blockers, e.g. atenolol. PRIL for ACE inhibitors, e.g. captopril. Sartan for angiotensin II receptor antagonists, e.g. losartan. Tinab for tyrosine kinase inhibitors, e.g. imatinib. Vastatin for HMG-CoA reductase inhibitors, a group of cholesterol-lowering agents, e.g. simvastatin. VIR for antivirals, e.g. acyclovir or ritonavir. Arte for artemisinin and antimalarials, e.g. artemether. Cef for cephalosporins, e.g. cephalexin. IO for iodine-containing radiopharmaceuticals, e.g. iobenguan. VEC for gene therapy vectors, e.g. ilipogene tiparvovec. Marin for messenger RNA products, e.g. tozinamran. Medication errors. What is a medication error? First, an error is an unintended act or an act that does achieve its intended outcome. Medication errors may be defined as any preventable actions that may contribute to the inappropriate or harmful use of a medicine by a patient. Why do medication errors occur? Medication errors may be defined as any preventable action that may contribute to the inappropriate or harmful use of a medicine by a patient. And they may occur due to the lack of focus, and concentration may be due to distractions and interruptions in a busy pharmacy. And they may occur when prescriptions and medication order are not clearly written. And also, they may occur due to the misuse and misinterpretation of abbreviations. What are the 5 rights of safe medication use? 1. The right patient. 2. The right drug. 3. The right time. 4. The right dose. 5. The right route of administration. 6. The right focus on individual performance and overlook crucial system components that contribute to errors. Errors, however, can still occur even after these 5 rights have been verified. What are some system-based causes of medication errors? Some causes of medication errors are the lack of information about the patient, which includes parameters such as age, weight, allergies, diagnoses, pregnancy status, lab values, vital signs. Also, some system-based causes of medication errors are the lack of information about the drug, such as text or computerized references, and communication and teamwork failures. Other system-based causes are unclear, unlabeled, or look-alike drug labels and packages. Moreover, unsafe drug standardization, storage, and distribution, and non-standard, flawed or unsafe medication delivery devices can also cause medication errors. Other causes can include inadequate staff orientation, ongoing education, supervision, and competency validation. Also, inadequate patient education about medication and medication errors. Further, there is a lack of a supportive culture of safety, and also the failure to learn from mistakes. Interpretation of prescriptions and medication orders. 1A prescription is an order for medication issued by a physician, dentist, or other licensed medical practitioner. 2 prescriptions designate a specific medication and dosage to be prepared by a pharmacist and administered to patient. 3 may be presented at the pharmacy by the patient or sent directly to the pharmacy by telephone, fax, or other electronic means, e.g. e-prescriptions. Pharmacist reduces to written form or computer entry. 4 in hospitals and other institutions, a medication order is used. 5 for children include age, weight, and or body surface area. This may be required to calculate the appropriate dose. Prescriptions and medications orders. For handwritten prescriptions, tamper-resistant prescription pads have been developed. Prevent the unauthorized copying, modification, or counterfeiting of prescriptions. Tamper resistance is achieved through the use of 1. Security paper, 2. erase-resistant paper, 3. thermochromatic ink, 4. embedded holograms. Probable causes of non-compliance. Unclear or misunderstood directions. Undesired side effects that discourage use. Lack of confidence in the drug or the prescriber. Discontinued use due to feeling better or worse. Economic reasons based on the cost of the drug. Absence of patient counseling. Confusion over taking multiple medications. Patient forgot to take medication. Percent compliance rate. Percent compliance rate, number of days supply of drug, over the number of days since Rx refill, multiplied by 100. There are levels of organization. From atom to molecule or compound to organelle to cell to tissue to organ system. Chemical level refers to the atoms, molecules, and macromolecules which form nucleic acids, proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids. Cellular level refers to the atoms, molecules, macromolecules, which form the functional and structural unit of life, and basic and specialized functions. For the tissue level of organization, tissue level cells of similar shape and specialized function. There are 4 major tissue types. 1 muscle specialized for contracting and generating tension. 2 nervous specialized in impulse production and transmission. 3 connective specialized in connecting and supporting. 4 epithelial specialized in surface lining and exchange. Organs level and organ system level. The organ level is composed of 2 or more tissues that perform a common function. The organ system level is composed of 2 or more organs that work to perform a common function that is essential to survival, and these include the digestive, respiratory, cardiovascular, and the human body contains 11 systems. The organism, this is a collection of body systems working together to maintain life. The parts of an organism strive to maintain an internal balance, and this includes homeostasis. Levels of structural organization. 1. Circulatory system: heart, blood, and blood vessels. Digestive system: mouth, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, salivary glands, exocrine pancreas, liver, and gallbladder. Respiratory system: nose, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, and lungs. Urinary system: kidneys, ureters, urinary bladder, and urethra. Skeletal system: bones, cartilage and joints. Muscular system: skeletal muscles. Integumentary system: skin, hair, nails. Immune system: lymph nodes, thymus, bone marrow, tonsils, and adenoids. Nervous system: brain, spinal cord, peripheral nerves, and special sense organs. Homeostasis: the maintenance of a stable internal environment. 37 degrees Celsius, pH 7.3 to 7.4. The internal environment is made of the extracellular fluid or ECF. Homeostatic control systems: network of body components that operate to maintain a given factor in the internal environment relatively constant around an optimum level. These include local intrinsic controls which are inherent, or built into a particular organ. There are also systemic, extrinsic, controls outside of an organ, involves neural and endocrine regulation, and coordinate various organs and systems. Negative feedback loops. Negative feedback loops operate by maintaining homeostasis by detecting a deviation from a set point and acting to restore that set point. 4 components of a negative feedback loop. 1 controlled variable. 2 sensor. 3 control center. 4 effector. All the feedback mechanisms that maintain homeostasis use negative feedback. Stimulus to sensor to control to the effector. Other regulatory mechanisms. There are also positive feedback loops. 1 in positive feedback loops, they continue increasing a change. 2 in positive feedback loops, the controlled variable moves in one direction. An example of positive feedback loops is uterine contractions. Steps. 1 nerve impulses from the cervix are transmitted to the brain. 2 the brain stimulates the pituitary gland to secrete oxytocin. 3 the oxytocin is carried in the bloodstream to the uterus. 4 the oxytocin stimulates uterine contractions and pushes the baby toward the cervix. 5 the head of the baby pushes against the cervix. There is also feed-forward mechanisms. Feed-forward mechanisms anticipate change and respond to that change before it happens and maintains stability. Examples of this are watering of mouth, salivation, as a result of sight, smell, or thought of food. Also, there is a rise in respiration before exercise, as well as the increased secretion of insulin as a result of food in the digestive tract, and this avoids excessive rise of glucose in blood after the meal. There is also homeostasis. Homeostasis is a condition of equilibrium, balance, in the body's internal environment. Homeostasis helps the body maintain an almost constant internal environment. This is tied to a dynamic condition, and there is a narrow range which is compatible with maintaining life. For example, blood glucose levels range between 70 to 110 mg of glucose/dl of blood. Moreover, the whole body contributes to maintaining the internal environment within normal limits. Additionally, there is homeostatic balance. However, homeostasis can be disrupted, due to physical insults such as intense heat or lack of oxygen. Additionally, changes in the internal environment such as the drop in blood glucose due to the lack of food. Also, there is physiological stress such as the demands of work or school. Furthermore, there are disruptions which can be mild and temporary in which balance is quickly restored. However, they can be intense and prolonged which involve poisoning or severe infections. Homeostatic and body fluids. Homeostasis also involves maintaining the volume and composition of body fluids which are important. Body fluids are defined as dilute, watery solutions containing dissolved chemicals inside or outside of the cell. There is also intracellular fluid, which is the fluid within cells. Furthermore, there is extracellular fluid, which is the fluid outside cells, and this also includes the interstitial fluid which includes the extracellular fluid between cells and tissues. We can also view the body as an open system, which exchanges materials and energy with its surroundings. Further, in terms of the percentage of water for a newborn infant, it is made of 80% water, an adult male is made of 60% water, and an adult female is made of 50% water. Elderly people can be made of about 45% water. Also, it is worth noting that the extracellular fluid includes the plasma, the interstitial fluid and the transcellular fluid which is located in specific anatomical areas. The transcellular fluid includes the CSF, the intraocular fluid, the pleural fluid, the peritoneal fluid, the synovial fluid and the digestive secretions. It is also worth noting that solutes involve dissolved particles. Electrolytes are charged particles inclusive of cations which are positively charged ions such as sodium cations and potassium cations. Anions which are negatively charged ions such as chloride ions, and bicarbonate ions. Additionally, non-electrolytes are uncharged such as proteins, urea, glucose, oxygen, and carbon dioxide. In terms of sodium concentration and potassium concentration, sodium is around the same in the plasma and interstitial fluid, however it is around 10 in skeletal muscle. However, for potassium, the ion concentrations in the plasma and interstitial fluid is rather small, however the concentration inside the skeletal muscle is large. Intra-ECF water redistribution. Plasma versus interstitium. This includes the balance of Starling forces acting across the capillary membrane. 1. Osmotic force. 2. Hydrostatic force. The balance between hydrostatic and colloid osmotic forces across the capillary membranes. There is also the intracellular versus the extracellular, which involves looking at the osmotic effect, e.g. electrolytes. It is important to note that plasma osmolarity measure ECF osmolarity. This is good since plasma is clinically accessible, and dominated by sodium ion concentration and the associated anions. Also, under normal conditions, ECF osmolarity can be roughly estimated as P_osm equals 2 times the concentration of sodium in the plasma, which is 270 to 290 milliosmolar. The ECF vs ICF. The extracellular fluid contains large amounts of sodium, chloride, and bicarbonate ion. Nutrients for the cells, such as oxygen, glucose, fatty acids, and amino acids. It also contains carbon dioxide that is being transported from the cells to the lungs to be excreted. Additionally, other cellular waste products are being transported to the kidneys for excretion. Furthermore, the intracellular fluid contains 1. Large amounts of potassium, 2. Magnesium, 3. Phosphate ions instead of the sodium and chloride ions found in the extracellular fluid. The intracellular fluid contains special mechanisms for transporting ions through the cell membranes, which maintain the ion concentration differences between the extracellular and intracellular fluids. Homeostasis involves several types of regulation. There is thermoregulation, osmoregulation, and glucoregulation. The organs of homeostasis are the brain, muscles, skin, lungs, pancreas, and kidneys. Why control temperature? Environmental temperature is constantly changing. However, the body must be kept at a constant temperature of 37 degrees Celsius. This is the optimum temperature for the body's enzymes. Even the slight changes in body temperature can have a life-threatening effects on health. If body temperature falls too low, reactions become too slow for cells to survive too high, and the body's enzymes are at risk of denaturing. Some important properties of carrier proteins are that they are stereoselective, there can be channel saturation which in diabetes is uncontrolled, and there can be competition. Channel saturation, in simple diffusion, increases proportionally with concentration of substance. Classes of antineoplastic agents include G2 inhibitors, M inhibitors, G1 inhibitors, and S inhibitors. G2 involves double-checking the DNA. M or mitosis involves cell splitting. G1 involves the cell contents being duplicated and S involves the DNA synthesis. G2 inhibitors are etoposide, tenofovir, irinotecan, topotecan. S inhibitors are azathioprine, cladribine, cytarabine, 5-fluorouracil, 6-mercaptopurine, hydroxyurea, and methotrexate. Also, M inhibitors include vincristine, vinblastine, paclitaxel, and eribulin. Also, G1 inhibitors include cisplatin, busulfan, cyclophosphamide, and nitrosoureas. Antineoplastics agents. The international non-proprietary name or official generic name will be followed by the route of administration, which will be followed by the mechanism of action. After which we will read the indications and the major toxicities. The first group of antineoplastic agents includes 1. Cytotoxic antineoplastics. The first subgroup of this group is 1. Nucleoside analogues. 1. Azacitidine. The route of administration can be subcutaneous or intravenous. The mechanism of action involves azacitidine acting as a DNA methyltransferase inhibitor, and azacitidine incorporates itself into RNA, hence inhibiting gene expression. The indications for azacitidine include myelodysplastic syndromes, acute myeloid leukemia and chronic myeloid leukemia. Additionally, the major toxicities include myelosuppression, kidney failure, uncommon/rare, renal tubular acidosis and hypokalemia. Reference: NIH website www.ncbi.nlm.nih.gov/books/NBK548022. Antineoplastic agents. Alkylating agents. O-altritamine, bendamustine, busulfan, carmustine, chlorambucil, cyclophosphamide, dacarbazine, ifosfamide, lomustine, lurbinectidine, mechlorethamine, melphalan, procarbazine, streptozicin, temozolomide, thiotepa, trabectedin. O-platinum coordination complexes. Carboplatin, cisplatin, oxaliplatin. Antibiotics, cytotoxic. O-bleomycin, dactinomycin, daunorubicin, doxorubicin, epirubicin, idarubicin, mitomycin, mitoxantrone, plicamycin, valrubicin. Antimetabolites. O-antifolates, methotrexate, pemetrexed, pralatrexate, trimetrexate. O-purine analogues, azathioprine, cladribine, fludarabine, mercaptopurine, thioguanine. O-pyrimidine analogues, azacitidine, capecitabine, cytarabine, decitabine, floxuridine, fluorouracil, gemcitabine, trifluoridine/tipiracil. Biologic response modifiers. O-aldesleukin, IL-2, denileukin diftitox, interferon gamma. Histone deacetylase inhibitors. O-belinostat, panobinostat, romidepsin, vorinostat. Hormonal agents. O-antiandrogens, abiraterone, apalutamide, bicalutamide, cyproterone, enzalutamide, flutamide, nilutamide. O-antiestrogens, including aromatase inhibitors anastrozole, exemestane, fulvestrant, letrozole, raloxifene, tamoxifen, toremifene. O gonadotropin releasing hormone analogs, digorilix, gosrelin, hystrelin, luprolide, rilugolix, triptorelin. O peptide hormones, lanreotide, octreotide, pasireotide. Monoclonal antibodies. O alemtuzumab, atezolizumab, avelumab, bevacizumab, blinatumomab, brentuximab, semiplimab, caduximab, daratumumab, dinutuximab, dostarlimab, durvalumab, elotuzumab, gemtuzumab, enotuzumab ozogamicin, ipilimumab, megamulizumab, moxetumomab pseudotox, nicitumumab, nivolumab, ofatumumab, olaratumab, panitumumab, pembrolizumab, pertuzumab, ramucirumab, rituximab, teclistamab, tositumumab, trastuzumab, tremelimumab. Protein kinase inhibitors. O abemaciclib, acalabrutinib, afatinib, alectinib, alpelisib, axitinib, binimetinib, bortezomib, bosutinib, brigatinib, cabozantinib, carfilzomib, siratinib, cobimetinib, copanlisib, crizotinib, dabrafenib, dacomitinib, dasatinib, duvlazib, inazatinib, encorafenib, ontrectinib, erdafitinib, erlotinib, fedratinib, futibatinib, gafatinib, gilteritinib, glasdegib, ibrutinib, idlaisib, imatinib, infigratinib, ivosidenib, ixazimib, lopatinib, larotrectinib, lenvatinib, lorlatinib, midostaurin. Naratinib, nilotinib, niraparib, olaparib, osimertinib, palbociclib, pazopanib, pemigatinib, pexidartinib, ponatinib, regorafenib, ribocicib, rucaparib, ruxultinib, selametinib, sinidegib, sorafenib, sunitinib, talazoparib, trametinib, vanditanib, vemurafenib, vismidegib, zonubrutinib. Taxanes. Ocabazitaxel, docetaxel, paclitaxel. Topoisomerase inhibitors. O-adiposide, irinotecan, tenopozid, topotecan. Vinca alkaloids. Ovinblastine, vincristine, vinorelbine. Moving right along with the next section. Action potential. Resting membrane potential. It is the voltage difference existing across the cell at rest. This exists in all cells. RMP, -70 to 90 MV. RMP is contributed by Na/K-ADPase, 0. Membrane potential. The potential difference between inside and outside the membrane. Due to different concentrations of ions, such as sodium, Na+, high outside and potassium and large protein molecules inside. Na and ions create positivity outside and inside the cell. 1 resting membrane potential, voltage difference across the cell membrane at rest, typically -70 to -90 MV. 2Y is the resting membrane potential -70 MV. 1. Na+/K and ADPase channel pumps 3 Na and out and 2 K and in, making the internal charge more negative to -5 MV2, K and will leave the cell through leaky K channels making the charge to -90 MV3, leaky Na and channels will pump Na and back into the cell making the charge -70 MV4, K and goes back inside to go back to -90 MV. 3 Nernst potential, equilibrium between the K and voltage inside and outside the cell. 4 Depolarization, excitatory posts neoptic potential glutamate binds to ligand-gated channel to bring in large amount of Na and Ca and bringing the charge to -55 MV. 5 Hyperpolarization, inhibitory posts sympathetic potential GABA binds to ligand-gated channel to bring in Cl bringing the charge to -90 MV. 6 Temporal summation, 1 neuron, multiple signals 7. Spatial summation, multiple neurons firing different signals. 8 Action potential, 1, Na and voltage-gated channels open at -55 MV and close at 30 MV2. When 30 MV is reached the K and voltage-gated channels will open and K and will leave bringing the charge to -90 MV. K end is attached to proteins and anions. Simultaneously, CAN tells the vesicles to release acetylcholine via exocytosis. 9 absolute refractory period, depolarization and repolarization. 10 relative refractory period, hyperpolarization. Routes of administration guide. IT intrathecal in the spine. 4 intravenous. IM intramuscularly. PO by mouth. Topical referring to applying to a specific place on the body such as skin or mucous membranes. Note, purpose of these episodes not at all, for advice or medical suggestions. These are aimed to provide support for peer pharmacists in training in educational and intellectual stimulating ways. Again, these are not at all for medical advice, or for medical suggestions. Please see your local state and board certified physician, PA or NP, and pharmacist for medical advice and suggestions. The views in this podcast represent those of my guest, S, and I.
Okay, welcome to the New Chemist Podcast, episode 3C. We go back to the basics and discuss fundamental ideas that support an understanding of pharmacy ideas. And we're using the format of a telephone conversation. This is definitely an episode worth listening to. So it's important to note that the purpose of these episodes are not at all medical advice, medical suggestions, or medical counsel. These are aimed to provide support for peer pharmacists in training in educational and intellectually stimulating ways. Again, please note that these are not at all medical advice, medical suggestions, or medical counsel. Please see your local state and board certified physician, physician assistant, or nurse practitioner, and pharmacist for medical advice and suggestions. Once again, these are not at all for medical advice, suggestions, or counsel. Please see your local state and board certified physician, physician assistant, or nurse practitioner, and pharmacist for medical advice, suggestions, and counsel. The views in this podcast represent those of my guests and I. So, pharmacy school is a blast. However, you must be very dedicated and maintain a good integration of your self-care regimen, as well as your personal affairs, as well as your academic responsibilities. So let's run through a few quick facts and then we'll conclude this episode for today. So pharmacokinetics, it's what the body does to the drug. We're talking about absorption, distribution, metabolism, and excretion over time. What's the goal of pharmacokinetics? We want to control the amount of drug exposure. So let's talk about respiratory alkalosis. It involves a rise in blood pH due to hyperventilation, so that's excessive breathing, and a resulting decrease in carbon dioxide. Let's talk about acidosis. What is it? Blood pH lower than 7.35. So let's also talk about extravascular drug absorption. That involves oral, stomach, absorbing the intestine, metabolizing the liver. Some amount of drug reaches the systemic circulation, and the rest of the drug is excreted. Let's talk about intravascular drug absorption. Actually, we'll come back to that. Let's talk about the first pass effect. The initial metabolism in the liver of a drug absorbed from the gastrointestinal tract before the drug reaches systemic circulation through the bloodstream. Let's say that again. First pass effect. The initial metabolism in the liver of a drug absorbed from the gastrointestinal tract before the drug reaches systemic circulation through the bloodstream. Let's also talk about enterohepatic cycling. Drugs are transported through the bile back to the intestine, where they can be reabsorbed in the intestines, increasing the duration of action. One more time. Enterohepatic recycling. Drugs are transported through the bile back to the intestine, where they can be reabsorbed in the intestines, increasing the duration of action. So when we administer intravenously, you have 100% bioavailability. Intravascular administration involves IV as well as intraarterial. Local activity
It will involve things like general pulmonary, topical, ocular, intraocular. Systemic activity will involve things like oral, sublingual, buccal, intramuscular, subcutaneous. Selective beta blockers. So we're just running through a litany of facts that are useful. It's primarily under the umbrella of pharmacy basics. We're just running through some ideas quickly. Just to give people a quick refresher for those who are in training this time. Selective beta blockers, metoprolol, atenolol, all, bisoprolol, nebivolol, acetbutolol, betaxolol, esmolol. How is drug absorbed? Active transport with transport proteins or passive diffusion. So we already mentioned how intravascular administration involves intravenous and intraarterial. Let's see what else can we talk about. So let's talk about dissolution. It's the process of drugs dissolving in the GI tract. Dissolution rate, we look at the Noyes-Whitney equation. Smaller the particle size, the greater the absorption. Increasing the surface area increases the drug absorption. Let's make a quick note of that. Dissolution rate, we look at the Noyes-Whitney equation. Smaller the particle size, the greater the absorption. Increasing the surface area increases the drug absorption. Almost rhymes. Now, how to limit drug degradation? You have your enteric coating, biodegradable polymers, so acidic environment in the stomach won't destroy the drug, increasing the amount of drug absorption. Bioavailability. Amount of drug available systemically to produce an effect. So how much of the drug is available in the drug to produce a therapeutic effect. So how much is available to produce a therapeutic effect? So formula percent of drug absorbed. The amount appears in systemic circulation or the amount administered. High bioavailability is above 70%. Low bioavailability is below 10%. Let's go back to that again. Formula percent of drug absorbed. Amount appears in systemic circulation over the amount administered. So amount appears in systemic circulation over the amount administered. High bioavailability is above 70%, whereas low bioavailability is below 10%. So let's see. Let's give an example. So if we have if we administered 100 milligrams of a drug orally, and 20 milligrams appears in systemic circulation, 20 over 100 is the same thing as 0.2. Multiply by 100 when we're talking about percent, it gives us 20%. Okay. And from the framework that we just discussed, that will give you an idea as to what extent or what amount of bioavailability is occurring with that problem. So drugs with 100% oral bioavailability, levofloxacin, linezolid. So those are examples of two. So formula for bioavailability, area under the plasma, concentration time curve, representing total drug exposure. That's a mouthful. Let's go over that again. Formula for bioavailability, area under the plasma, concentration time curve, representing total drug exposure. Okay, there are formulas for that. We can discuss that later. So what are the physicochemical properties that affect drug distribution? Lipophilicity. Lipids can easily cross the membrane. All the things that affect this drug distribution: molecular weight, ionization status. The charged particles cannot pass, non-charged particles can pass, and protein binding. So lipophilicity, molecular weight, ionization status, and protein binding. So LIMP, L-I-M-P, lipophilicity, ionization status, molecular weight, protein binding. Those are the lens to which you look at, or basically the parameters that you kind of look at when you're trying to determine understand what's affecting drug distribution. Also, let's go back to the formula for bioavailability. 100 times AUC subscript EX over AUC subscript IV times dose subscript IV over dose EX. So it's important to note that EX is referring to extravascular, IV is referring to intravenous, AUC is referring to area under the curve. 100 is being used because we're talking about percent, and F is absolute bioavailability. Let's run that back one more time. F is absolute bioavailability. We multiply by 100 because we're talking about percent. AUC is area under the curve. IV is referring to intravenous. EX is referring to extravascular. So F is 100 times AUC EX over AUC IV, and that whole thing is multiplied by dose IV over dose EX. So high protein binding. Drug has high affinity for albumin, so the amount of free drug will be low. The albumin acts as a reservoir for the drug, and it releases the free drug in small amounts to the tissue to exert its effect. This increases the duration of action. High protein binding. Drug has a high affinity for albumin, so the amount of free drug will be low. The albumin acts as a reservoir for the drug, and it releases the free drug in small amounts to the tissue to exert its effect. This increases the duration of action. 28. Albumin. So protein in the blood that's made in the liver. So let's keep going. When a correction form, site-specific drug delivery. Antibodies bind to particular receptors on specific tissues or organs. Site-specific drug delivery involves antibodies binding to particular receptors on specific tissues or organs. So when are correction formulas needed? Highly bound protein drugs with patients whose serum albumin is low. Examples of highly protein bound drugs: phenytoin, warfarin. Examples of those. Let's look and see. What else can we talk about? Calcium corrected formula. So calcium, in brackets, reported serum plus, in brackets, 4.0, subtracting the albumin amount, and that difference is multiplied by 0.8. Phenytoin corrected formula. Total phenytoin measured over, in brackets, 0.2 times the albumin amount plus 0.1. So the product of 0.2 times the albumin amount is in brackets added to 0.1. The whole thing is a denominator under the numerator, which is total phenytoin measured. So volume of distribution. This is the amount of drug in body over plasma drug concentration. Okay. So small volume of distribution involves it being confined to plasma or extracellular space. Example, atobromycin, 0.2 liters per kilogram. Large volume distribution, wide distribution to all body tissues, so the plasma drug concentration is low. Tetracycline is an example of that, 7 to 9 liters per kilogram. So guys, what kind of volume of distribution would you want a drug to have if you were treating a systemic infection? You can think about that and process that in your healthcare profession class or science class. Okay. Let's see what else to talk about. So metabolism involves the process by which a drug is converted from its original chemical structure to other chemical forms. The original chemical form is the parent drug. Other chemical forms, metabolites, occurs primarily in gut and liver. We want the drug to be lipophilic so it can cross the phospholipid bilayer and exert its effects on the tissues. The body undergoes multiple biological reactions to make these intermediates hydrophilic so that they can be excreted by the body. Okay, so lidocaine undergoes extensive first-pass metabolism in the liver, so it's only administered, or typically administered in the intravenous form. Okay. Excretion, irreversible removal of the drug from the body. Organs for excretion, you have the kidneys, and that results. Kidneys function to produce urine. The gut, GI tract, basically function to produce feces. Lungs function to produce exhaled air. The skin functions to produce sweat. The liver functions to produce bile. So clearance is defined as the volume of plasma cleared of a drug over a period of time. Clearance is defined as the volume of plasma cleared of a drug over a period of time. Okay, two formulas for clearance involve the rate of elimination over concentration. Also, F times dose over area under the curve. Okay, so half-life, the time in which 50% of the drug is eliminated, T1/2. So first order elimination, constant percentage of drug is removed per unit time. The drug concentration is eliminated, and that's directly proportional to the concentration of the drug. Okay. Let's see what else we can talk about. Let's see. So, zero order elimination, the constant amount of drug is eliminated per unit time. So Michaelis-Menten kinetics, this is like, if you've done biochemistry and you're now in the pharmacy program, this is an idea that you see over and over and over again. So, let's think. Michaelis-Menten kinetics, you have your mixed story, is it saturable or non-linear kinetics? Increasing the dose leads to disproportionate increase in concentration. First section of the curve, lots of available enzymes. Second section, composition of enzymes, more drug than binding sites available on enzyme. Third section, all the active sites on the enzymes occupied. The drug is not being metabolized, leading to toxicity. So let's keep going. Km, concentration at half max of Vmax. Michaelis-Menten drugs, phenytoin, theophylline, voriconazole. Okay, let's keep going. It's important to note that let's just talk about a quick case scenario. The patient has been using phenytoin 100 milligrams 3 times daily. So TID, the phenytoin level was drawn and found to be 8.8 micrograms per milliliter, reference range 10 to 20 micrograms per milliliter. The prescriber doubled the dose to 20 milligrams 3 times daily, so TID. The patient started to slur words, felt fatigue, and returned to the clinic. The level was repeated and found to be 23.7 micrograms per milliliter. Which of the following is accurate regarding the most likely reason for the change in phenytoin level? So, what we understand is phenytoin metabolism can become saturated at higher doses. Phenytoin metabolism can become saturated at higher doses. Saturation point. Let's keep going now. Saturation point. Adding more substrate will make no difference in the reaction rate. Good rule of thumb for phenytoin: if there is 7 micrograms per milliliter in the serum, adjust doses in small increments, no more than 30 to 50 milligrams at a time. So Ke is the elimination rate constant. Let's see. The loading dose. Use of a higher dose than what is usually used for treatment to allow the drug to reach the concentration that exerts the therapeutic effect. As we progress, one of these episodes, we'll spend some time talking about therapeutic effects and therapeutic indices, therapeutic windows. Okay, so let's keep going. We're going to talk about some pharmacology basics now. Pharmacology is the body of knowledge concerned with the actions of chemicals on biological systems. What is medical pharmacology? It involves the use of chemicals in prevention, diagnosis, and treatment of disease. What is toxicology? It is concerned with the undesirable effects of chemicals on biological systems. What is pharmacokinetics? It involves what the body does to the drug. You have your ADME, your absorption, your distribution, your metabolism, your excretion. What is pharmacodynamics? How I think about this is when I look at the word, D comes with 4 of the letters, M, A, and N. So it's what the drug does to the body, or drug does to the man. That's how I see it. That's how I process this. So pharmacodynamics, what the drug does to the body. What is onset of action? Is how much of the drug comes into circulation to produce the effect, determined by the route of administration and drug dosage. When you increase the drug dosage, the concentration of drug in the body will also increase. So what is onset of action? Is how much of the drug comes into circulation to produce effect. The effect, determined by the route of administration and drug dosage. When you increase drug dosage, the concentration of drug in the body will also increase. So what is duration of action affected by, or what can be affected by? The drug dosage, or higher the dosage. It also can be affected by the rate of distribution, the rate of metabolism, and the rate of excretion. So MEC, minimum effective concentration. It's the amount of drug required to produce a therapeutic effect. So what is the duration of action? It's the time between the rise to the decline at minimum effective concentration for therapeutic effect. What is the MOA, the mechanism of drug action? Drugs cannot produce immunoaction in the body, can act on enzymes, ion channels, upregulate or downregulate the system within the body. So there are some more things we want to talk about. Ligands, so they're signaling molecules, RA, receptor existing in the active state, RI, the receptor existing in the inactive state. Depending on whether you read, some people refer to, like in biochemistry, is referred to, they use different letters to describe those things in undergrad biochemistry. But for now, in this phase, we'll talk about RA being a receptor existing in an active state, RI, receptor existing in an inactive state. So the external receptor site. Ligands bind outside plasma membrane and produces change inside the cell. These are elegantly displayed with receptor proteins on the phospholipid bilayer. So internal receptor site. Drugs go inside the cell, bind the receptor inside the cell, moves to the nucleus to produce desired effect. So mechanisms of agonist-mediated activation. You have your ion channels, your GPCRs, wonderful group class of receptors, just excellent, wonderful family, if you will. Receptor tyrosine kinases, intracellular hormone receptors. So those are things you want to like focus in on. Ion channel, ligand, gated voltage, gated second messenger regulated. Ligand gated ion channel, drug binds the ion channel, activating it to open, so it enters, triggering an action potential. Voltage gated ion channel, change in charge or potential between the inside of the cell and the outside of the cell, causing the channels to open to maintain internal homeostasis. Inside the cell, the charge is between negative 70 millivolts and negative 90 millivolts to open the gate to maintain internal homeostasis. Okay, let's go. Second messenger regulated. Various second messengers are regulated certain channels by opening and closing them. Some include calcium and cyclic AMP. Cyclic AMP can cause the activation of enzymes which trigger signal transduction pathways. So your GPCRs, your guanine protein coupled receptors, a signal receptor protein in the plasma membrane that responds to the binding of a signal molecule by activating a G protein, also called the G protein link receptor. Your RTKs, receptor tyrosine kinases. Insulin binds to tyrosine kinase receptor. Tyrosine kinase receptor undergoes autophosphorylation. Insulin receptor is activated. Downstream cascade of signals. Final signal is to recruit glucose transporters, GLUT. Move from cytosol to plasma membrane and take these into tissues for utilization or storage. So let's talk about some amino acids for a bit. Just for a quick bit, we know some amino acids with hydroxyl groups are serine, tyrosine, and threonine. So serine, if you go from the peptide backbone and walk down the R group, you have, so serine has the methionine spacer, and hydroxyl tyrosine has your methionine spacer, your benzyl ring, and then your hydroxyl. And threonine has a methine spacer, then a methyl group that comes off from that, and then a hydroxyl group. Okay, so kinase is then going to cause this phosphorylation. If you want to look up the spacers in terms of methionine, TH2, methine, CH is what we're referring to. We say those spacers. That's kind of organic chemistry talk, or speak, if you will, for those who are organic chemistry majors or who study some organic chemistry. So let's talk about kinases, enzymes that cause phosphorylation. So intracellular hormone receptor, mostly steroids, enter the cell easily because they are lipids, bind to receptors inside the cell in the cytoplasm, get activated, move to the nucleus, cause DNA transcription, which leads to the formation of particular proteins. So affinity, the measure of tightness in which a drug binds to a receptor. What is intrinsic activity? So the ability of a drug to activate a receptor upon binding. An agonist is a drug that limits the action of the endogenous ligand. Primary agonist. Drug binds the same recognition site as the endogenous agonist. So I've heard of allosteric, but this was a new one for me. Orthosteric. Orthosteric site, the primary or the right binding site. Allosteric agonist binds to a different region of the receptor. So allosteric is referring to another. That's what that word means, literally. Antagonists, drugs that block or reduce the activity of an agonist. So antagonist blocks the agonist. Antagonists. And these have affinity but no intrinsic activity. And remember, intrinsic activity is the ability of a drug to activate a receptor upon binding. Asymptotic interaction. Competition with agonists for the same overlapping site. Asymptotic interaction. Competition with agonists for the same or overlapping site. You got your physical antagonist. Physically interacts and nullifies the action of the drug. Example, charcoal, which is a good absorbent. It binds to alkaloid to form a complex and will be excreted. The chemical antagonist, the drug forms compounds with other substances like calcium and magnesium. Example, tetracycline binds to calcium in milk and then will be eliminated. You have your physiological antagonist, a drug that counters the effects of another by binding to a different receptor and causing opposing effects. Drugs that produce an opposite action by binding to a different receptor. Example, adrenaline is a physiological antagonist to histamine because adrenaline causes bronchodilation and histamine causes bronchoconstriction. Pharmacological antagonists. The drug that binds to the receptor and produces no effect and shows no intrinsic activity. And remember, intrinsic activity is basically the ability of a drug to activate a receptor upon binding. Partial agonists. A drug that binds to a receptor and causes a response as less than that caused by a full agonist. You have your inverse agonists. In the stomach, histamine receptors are constitutively activated. They're activated without stimulus. So under normal conditions, they're operating at 20%. Inverse agonists inhibit these receptors, bringing them down to 0%. Competitive agonists, same binding site as agonists, resembles chemically with agonists. You have a right shift on the dose-response curve. Response depends on concentration. So your dose and response, your dose can be considered like your X value. Your response can be considered like your Y value, if you will. So you plot So non-competitive agonists, different binding set of agonists, not resemble chemically, a downward shift of dose-response curve. Increasing agonist concentration won't make a difference. So one more time, non-competitive agonists, you have a different binding site of agonists, not resembled chemically, you have a downward shift of the dose-response curve. Increasing agonist concentration won't make a difference in this case, or in that case. So how do we activate receptor sites? You open or close ion channels, speed up or slow down transporters, increase or decrease enzyme activity. So efficacy. What is efficacy? It is the maximum effect a drug can produce. It can be measured with a graded dose response curve. Potency is the amount of drug needed to produce a given effect, determined by affinity of the receptor for the drug. So EC50, the dose is required for an individual to experience 50% of the maximum effect. ED50, the dose required to produce a therapeutic effect in 50% of the population, median effective dose. So your therapeutic index, it's a ratio. It compares the blood concentration at which a drug becomes toxic and the concentration at which the drug is effective. Your LD50 over your ED50. 10 to 1 safer drug because it has a wider therapeutic index. 3 to 1 more dangerous drugs needs more attention because the therapeutic index is narrow. LD50, median lethal dose. So tolerance. What is tolerance? Reduced response to drug after prolonged use, develops gradually over a long period of time. For example, alcoholics need more alcohol on the second day to feel the same effect from the first. If it is accustomed to alcohol, so they're intense already. So let's talk about pharmacokinetic tolerance. It involves the enhanced enzymatic breakdown. It reduces the amount of drug reaching its site of action. Example, barbiturates, carbamazepine, reduce their own metabolism, so oil metabolism or oil destruction on frequent repeated use. So pharmacodynamic tolerance. So you had your pharmacokinetic tolerance. Let's talk about pharmacodynamic tolerance. It is the tolerance caused by altered nervous system sensitivity, change in receptors. It involves the action of drug as being reduced because of downregulation of receptors, meaning that receptor expression or the amount of receptor present will be less. The receptor is not as active as before, or it involves the sensitization of receptors, meaning the receptors will not function as well. So proteins could go through PTMs or post-translational modifications, meaning that they lose, for example, a sulfide due to the drug use, losing their function. Some changes are reversible, others are not. And internalization, and that internalization of receptors, so receptor will not be available, and exhaustion of mediators, depletion of catecholamine, or epinephrine as well. So natural inherent tolerance involves the genetic makeup, makes an individual resistant or will have more response to a drug. Acquired tolerance occurs when repeated use of drug. Tolerance develops to sedative action of chlorpromazine, but not its antipsychotic action. Tolerance occurs to sedative action of phenobarbital, but not to its anti-epileptic action. So cross tolerance. Development of tolerance to pharmacologically related drugs. Example, partial tolerance between morphine and barbiturates. And then you also have complete cross tolerance between morphine and pethidine, same drug class. So what is tachyphylaxis? It's a type of tolerance that occurs rapidly within minutes or seconds when it takes a small concentration of drug to cause this. So what are some drugs that have a low or narrow therapeutic index? You have your acetaminophen, your theophylline, carbamazepine, digoxin, warfarin, lithium, phenytoin, gentamicin, vancomycin, antidepressants, bicyclic insulin. Let's talk some more. And what are your drugs with the narrow therapeutic index? Acetaminophen, theophylline, carbamazepine, digoxin, warfarin, lithium, phenytoin, gentamicin, vancomycin, antidepressants, bicyclic, and insulin. So drugs with a higher wide therapeutic index are your NSAIDs, your non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, your benzodiazepines, most antibiotics, furosemide, and your SSRIs. Nitroglycerin can cause tolerance. As a pharmacist, you must tell the patient they need to have a 10 to 12 nitrate-free period to prevent tolerance. Nitroglycerin causes vasodilation. Let's keep going. Synergism. One drug is going to have an additive effect with another drug, increasing efficacy. Action of one drug is facilitated or increased by another drug, or when one drug is inactive alone but active when combined with another. Additive, the effect of two drugs in the same direction. Example, amlodipine. Okay, so let's keep going. So we also have, so example, do you have the additive, the effect of two drugs in the same direction? Example, amlodipine and atenolol, all antihypertensive. Amlodipine is a calcium channel blocker, and atenolol is a beta blocker. Both work to reduce hypertension and act on different places in the heart. You have glibenclamide, and metformin. Hypoglycemic glibenclamide is a sulfonylurea that increases insulin receptor sensitivity and causes secretion of insulin, acts on pancreas. Metformin acts on liver to control blood glucose level. So super additive, otherwise known as potentiation. The effect of the combination is greater than the individual effects of each component. Acetylcholine and physostigmine. Acetylcholine acts on muscle produce effect. Physostigmine is inactive. Both are degraded by acetylcholinesterase. When acetylcholine is alone, the enzyme will break it down quickly. You have physostigmine. With it, the enzyme doesn't know which one to attack. Competition between the two, so it increases the duration of acetylcholine. Levodopa and carbidopa. Levodopa treats Parkinson's disease by converting to dopamine to prevent movement disorder. When taken orally, levodopa is converted to dopamine in the intestine, causing adverse effects like nausea and vomiting. Give it with carbidopa, which prevents the breakdown of the intestines, so it can be transported to the brain, across the blood-brain barrier, where it can be converted to dopamine to act on the basal ganglia, sulfamethoxazole/trimethoprim. Inhibits two enzymes, inflammation of tetrahydrofolic acid, which is required for bacterial cell wall synthesis. If you want to kill the bacteria, you need sulfamethoxazole to prevent the conversion of PABA to an intermediate product. and then you need trimethoprim to prevent the conversion of intermediate product to tetrahydrofolic acid. So enalapril and hydrochlorothiazide. Enalapril, angiotensin converting enzyme angiotensin converting inhibitor, hydrochlorothiazide, diuretic, acts in 2 different places to produce the antihypertensive effect. So let's wrap this up. Drug action and enzymology. So the ES is referring to your enzyme substrate complex. The enzyme, a type of protein that speeds up a chemical reaction in a living thing. Enzymes are globular proteins, very specific. Substrate, reactant, EP, enzyme product complex, irreversible inhibition of enzymes caused by covalent bonds. Enzymes cannot be regenerated. The only way the product can be catalyzed is when new enzyme molecules are produced in the body. Reversible inhibition of enzymes. Enzymes can be freed from the complex to give the active enzyme. Ka, association constant of ligand with receptor site. Kd, association constant for the receptor. EC50, drug concentration given a response halfway between the baseline and maximum. IC50, concentration which produces 50% of the maximum possible inhibitory response, which is equal to the quantal response. Quantal response equals IC50. So affinity, the ability of a compound to bind tightly to the target. Intrinsic activity, the drug's ability to produce an effect once bound to the receptor. Potency, the amount of drug needed to produce an effect. The more potent the drug, the steeper the slope on the DRC, or the dose response curve. Efficacy. So efficacy, the potential maximum therapeutic response a drug can have. Example, furosemide eliminates more salt and water than chlorothiazide, so furosemide has a higher efficacy. Okay, so efficacy, the potential maximum therapeutic response a drug can produce. Allosteric site, or allostery is referring to another, it's a site the drugs bind to that exerts the activity that's not the actual receptor site of the endogenous ligand. So isosteres, which is a nice word, replacement of modifications of functional groups with other groups having similar properties. So replacement or modifications of functional groups with other groups having similar properties. It tunes, make sure you remember that word, tunes the drug metabolism, receptor fit distribution and other properties. So bioisosterism, swapping out functional groups present in the chemical compound while maintaining the desired biological activity. Corrects undesired properties. So let's wrap this up. This involves starting with the parent compound and using isosteres, which involves slightly changing the general structure to make more desirable structures. These are analogs. So isosteres of hydrogen, fluorine, isosteres of fluorine, hydroxyl, amine, so NH2 or CH3, brackets H, isosteres of carbon, isosteres of hydroxyl, amine, isosteres of sulfur hydroxyl, isosteres of chlorine, fluorine, and trifluoro methyl. So this is the end of the episode.
DP. Now flex, it's dependent on K. The oil to wire partition coefficient of the drug as well as on void and in brackets C1 minus C2 rum tom ionization of a weak electrolyte. You know, I always wanted to be an acolyte, a thurifer, a catechist, or a trumpeter, you see. But today we're talking about my good friend, the trumpeter, but less chatelier in the ionization. So ionization is affected by pH of the medium in which the drug is dissolved, as well as by the pKa. Remember, non-ionized are like the chemical thugs, more liquid, soluble, the diffusive thug, if you will. They are more lipid-soluble than the ionized and partitions more readily. Hopefully by now you realize. Rubber tum-tum, let's have a drum roll. Here, little beggar boy, oh, that's for the periodic table. Let's talk about the transport process that's not a stable. The actin transport of the drug, with it moving across a concentration gradient, requiring energy, selective potentially, saturation possibility, and competitive it can be. Yet we must look across the hall and see that facilitated diffusion is on the carrier-mediated transport system walls. Facilitated diffusion occurs across a concentration gradient and does not require energy. Obrigada, e você, como você está? Tudo bem, tudo. Wow, fala pequeno português. So let's talk in English, por favor. S'il vous plaît. With that paracellular transport, drug transport across tight, narrow junctions between cells or trans-endothelial channels. No, I'm not talking about fire stick, but let me give you a conceptual trick. Paracellular transport involves both diffusion and convective or bulk fill of water and the accompanying water-soluble drugs to the channels. That can be a hint. Now let's look at the vesicles. Newly minted idea in this lyrical scheme. Vesicular transport is the process of engulfing particles or dissolved materials by a cell. Engulfment. Kino with drinking. Sago with eating. Pinocytosis, engulfment of small solute or fluid volumes. Phagocytosis is engulfment of larger particles. Your macromolecules, generally by macrophages. Endocytosis and exocytosis are the movement of macromolecules into and out of the cell. Biopharmaceutics and drug delivery. This guns. So we've reached the end of this lyrical scheme. You see, we'll pick back up conceptually in episode 2B. Okay, so great for a number to be pursuing further study as a pharmacist in the US. These episodes again will be under the theme, The Journey to Narcotic Success. These will cover in summative form key points that salad to me as I embark on my journey as a pharmacy student on charter course to narcotic success. Note the purpose of these episodes, not at all for advice or medical suggestions, but to provide support for peer pharmacists in training in educational and intellectually stimulating ways. Not at all for medical advice or medical suggestions. Please see a local state and board certified physician, PA or NP, and pharmacist for medical advice and suggestions. The newcomer becomes a pharmacist in training, the journey to narcotic success. The North American Pharmacist Licensure Examination, NAPLEX, is a standard examination created by the National Association of Boards of Pharmacy, NABP, to help individual state boards of pharmacy assess an individual's competency and knowledge so they may be given a license to practice. So this is an important exam. So be abbreviations you want to keep in mind as we conclude. UNSP 34, United States Pharmacopoeia 34, and NF Natural Formulary 29. So, this is the end of the episode. Thanks for listening.
Grateful and humble to be pursuing further studies as a pharmacist in training in the US. These episodes will be under the theme, The Journey to NAPLEX Success. These will cover in summative form key points that stand out to me as I embark on my journey as a pharmacy student and chart a course to NAPLEX Success. Note: purpose of these episodes not at all for advice or medical suggestions, to provide support for peer pharmacists in training in educational and intellectual stimulating ways, not at all for medical advice or for medical suggestions. See your local state and board certified physician, PA or NP, and pharmacist for medical advice and suggestions. The new chemist becomes a pharmacist in training. The journey to the NAPLEX, the North American Pharmacist Licensure Examination. NAPLEX is a standard examination created by the National Association of Boards of Pharmacy, NABP, to help individual state boards of pharmacy assess an individual's competency and knowledge so that they may be given a license to practice. Big abbreviations: USP 34, United States Pharmacopoeia 34, Natural Formulary, NF 29, Pharmaceutical Principles and Drug Dosage Forms. Overarching ideas: pharmaceutical principles are the underlying physical-chemical principles that allow a drug to be incorporated into a pharmaceutical dosage form, e.g. solution or capsule. These principles apply whether the drug is extemporaneously compounded by the pharmacist or manufactured for commercial distribution as a drug product. Dosage equals active drug ingredients plus excipients. Drug delivery system involves the prodrug, the formulation matrix, dynamic interaction, its container and the physiologic milieu. PFDIP prodrug, formulation matrix, dynamic interactions, its container, and physiologic milieux. A1. Drugs are categorized by the physical state, degree, its heterogeneity, and chemical composition. Physical state: solid, liquid, gas. 2. Intermolecular forces of attraction, nonpolar London dispersion or induced dipole interaction, polar dipole-induced dipole interaction, dipolar permanent dipole interactions, Keesom orientation forces. 3. Keesom orientation and Debye and London dispersion forces are van der Waals forces. 4. Hydrogen bonds. 5. Ion-ion, ion dipole, and ion-induced dipole forces. Symmetry and polarity are related in that symmetry influences electron cloud distribution and that influences polarity. Substances that flow in accordance with Newton's law are known as Newtonian substances. For a Newtonian fluid, a plot of shear stress as a function of shear rate, a flow curve or rheogram, yields a straight line with a slope of n, where n is the coefficient of viscosity. Non-Newtonian substances do not obey Newton's equation of flow. These types of substances exhibit shear-dependent or time-dependent viscosity. In either case of shear-dependent or time-dependent viscosity, technically apparent viscosity, thus Newton's law is not obeyed strictly. Non-Newtonian substances: A. Shear-dependent viscosity equals either increase in apparent viscosity or dilatancy or shear thickening. B. Shear-dependent viscosity equals decrease in apparent viscosity or pseudoplasticity or time-dependent viscosity. The yield value of plastic systems may be time-dependent, i.e. may depend on the time scale involved in the application of force. Big ideas: negative fixotropy or rheopoxy, decrease in fluidity, increase in structure. Fixotropy, increase in fluidity, decrease in structure. Fixotropic system display shear thinning behavior equals do not immediately recover their Household transformation. Rheopoxy, negative fixotropy or antifixotropy, occurs when the apparent viscosity of the system continues to increase with continued application of shear up to some equilibrium value of a given shear rate. Solids, crystalline solids. 1. Molecular order, distinct melting points, anisotropicity. Amorphous solids. 1. Randomly arranged molecules, no melting points, isotropicity, less thermodynamic stability. Polymorphism. Polymorphs have different molecular arrangements, a process by which solvent molecules pass through a semi-permeable membrane, a barrier through which only solvent molecules may pass from region of dilute solution to one of more concentrated solution. Electrolyte solution of ionic equilibria. Acid-base equilibrium. H+ concentrated values are very small. Therefore, they are expressed in exponential notation as pH. The pH is the logarithm of the reciprocal of the H+ concentration. As pH decrease, H+ increase exponentially. Heterogeneous systems, dispersed systems. Introduction: suspension greater than two-phase systems. Emulsion, rightwards arrow. Heterogeneous system, rightwards arrow. Inherently unstable. Emulsions involve emulsifying agent. Dispersion stability. In an ideal dispersion, the dispersed particles do not interact. In contrast, in a real dispersity between the dispersion phase and the dispersion medium, particle size should be as small as possible. High particulate, dispersed phase concentration will increase the rate of particle-particle collisions and interaction. Avoidance of particle-particle interactions. Aggregation can be prevented if the particles have similar electrical charge. The magnitude of the charge is the difference in electrical potential between the charged surface of the particle and the bulk of the dispersion medium. Density can be manipulated to decrease the rate of dispersion instability. The sedimentation or flotation rate is inversely proportional to the viscosity. Emulsion stability, rightwards arrow. Coalescence occurs in emulsion system when the liquid particle of the dispersed phase merge to from larger. Coalescence of droplets in oil and water, OW. Emulsion is also inhibited by electrostatic repulsion of similarity charged particles. Creaming is the reversible separation of a larger of emulsion particles. However, cracking, or irreversible phase separation, is never acceptable. Phase inversion or emulsion type reversal involves the reversion of an emulsion from an OW to water and oil, WO form, vice versa. Chemical kinetics and drug stability, 92 terms in 22 minutes. Stability. The stability of the active component of a drug is major criterion in the rational design and evaluation of drug dosage forms. Active component. An active ingredient is a component that provides pharmacological activity and direct effects in diagnosis, mitigation, treatment, etc., adapted from the FDA's glossary. Substantial loss of the active ingredient form. The dosage form can be caused by extensive chemical degradation of the active ingredient. Toxic product can be produced by chemical degradation and has undesirable side effects. Decreased bioavailability can be caused by instability of the drug product. Also, the therapeutic efficacy of the dosage form may be substantially reduced. Rate of reaction, otherwise known as degradation rate, which is the velocity with which the reaction occurs. Key terms to look for: reaction concentration, temperature, pH, and the presence of solvents of additives. Pharmacokinetic principles: absorption, distribution, metabolism, and excretion. Order of a reaction is the way in which the concentration of the drug or reactant in a chemical reaction affects the rate. Pharmaceutical degradation. 0 order. The rate is independent of the concentration of the reactants. First order. The rate depends on the first power of the concentration of single reactant. The drug concentration decreases exponentially with time. Half-life. This is the term used to describe the time required for the concentration of a drug to decrease by 1/2. The constant A and the constant E are obtained by determining K at several temperatures and then plotting log K against 1T. The activated state. The activation energy, E, is the amount of energy required to put the molecules in an activated state. Molecules must be activated to react, and as temperatures increase, more molecules are activated, and the reaction rate increases. Temperature increases. Very important in reactants becoming activated. pH of optimum stability can be determined by plotting the logarithm of the rate constant, K, as a function of pH, and the point of inflection of the plot is the pH of optimum stability. Complexing agents. Agents can improve drug stability. Example: aromatic esters such as benzocaine, procaine, and tetracaine increase in half-life in the presence of caffeine. This increased stability appears to result from the formation of a less reactive complex between the aromatic ester and the caffeine. Modes of pharmaceutical degradation. The decomposition of active ingredients in the dosage form occurs through several pathways. Hydrolysis is the most common type of degradation because many medicinal compounds are esters, amides, or lactams. Oxidation is usually mediated through reaction with atmospheric oxygen under ambient condition. Autooxidation. Antioxidants in the formulation react with the free radicals by providing electrons and easily available hydrogen atoms. In this way, they prevent the propagation of chain reactions. Commonly used antioxidants. These include ascorbic acid, butylated hydroxyandazole, BHA, butylated hydroxytoluene, BHT, propylgallate, sodium bisulfite, and the tocopherols. Photolysis is the degradation of drug molecules by normal sunlight or room light. Amber glass bottle or opaque container acts as a barrier to this light, thereby preventing or retarding photolysis. USP United States Pharmacopoeia NF National Formulary. Purified water. USP is water obtained by distillation, ion exchange, reverse osmosis or other suitable treatment. Water for injection. USP is water obtained by distillation or by reverse osmosis. Sterile water for injection. USP is water for injection that is sterilized and packaged in single-dose containers of type I and II glass. Bacteriostatic water for injection USP is sterile water for injection that contains one or more suitable antimicrobial agents. Sterile water for inhalation USP is water that is purified by distillation or by reverse osmosis, i.e., water for injection and rendered sterile. Sterile purified water USP is purified water sterilized and suitably packaged. Oral drug solution includes syrups and elixirs as well as other less widely prescribed classical Galen-Eichau formulations such as aromatic waters, tinctures, fluid extracts, and spirits. Syrup NF is a concentrated or nearly saturated aqueous solution of sugar, 85%, 65% WW. Elixirs are traditionally peroral solution that contain alcohol as a co-solvent. Many peroral solutions are not described as elixirs but contain alcohol. Aromatic elixir NF, prepared in part from syrup, contains approximately 22% alcohol. ISO alcohol elixir, it is a combination of low alcoholic elixir, and elixir with low alcohol content, 8% to 10% alcohol, and high alcohol elixir, and elixir with high alcohol content, 73% to 78% alcohol. Aromatic waters are clear, saturated aqueous solution of volatile oils or other aromatic or volatile substances. Distillation is a universal method but is not practical or economical for most products. It is, however, for preparing strong rose water and orange flower water. Spirits, essences, are alcoholic or hydroalcoholic solutions of volatile substances. They contain 50% to 90% alcohol. High alcoholic content maintains the water-insoluble volatile oils in solution. Tinctures are alcoholic or hydroalcoholic solutions of chemicals or soluble constituents of vegetable drugs. Fluid extracts are liquid extracts of vegetable drugs. They contain alcohol as a solvent, preservative, or both. Nasal, ophthalmic, otic, and parenteral solutions are classified because of their specific use and method of preparation. Astringents are locally applied solutions that precipitate protein. Astringents cause constriction, with wrinkling and blanching of the skin. Because astringents reduce secretions, they can be used as antiperspirants. Antibacterial topical solutions, e.g. benzalkonium chloride, strong iodine, POVIDONE iodine, kill bacteria when applied to the skin or mucous membranes in the proper strength and appropriate conditions. Suspension greater than lotions in magmas, which are suspensions of finely divided material in a small amount of water. For purposes of suspensions: 1. Sustaining effect. For a sustained release preparation, a suspension necessitates drug dissolution before absorption. Also, there is stability, basic solubility, and taste, which is referring to the fact that a drug with an unpleasant taste can be converted into an insoluble form and then prepared as a suspension. Suspending agents include hydrophilic colloids, clays, and a few other agents. Some are also used as emulsifying agents. Examples: hydrophilic colloids, clays, and other agents. Emulsifying agents: any compound that lowers the interfacial tension and forms a film at the interface can potentially function as an emulsifying agent. Examples include natural emulsifying agents such as acacia and tragacanth, and also agar, and also synthetic emulsifying agents such as sulfuric acid esters and polysorbates. Fusion method. This method is used when the base contains solids that have higher melting, e.g., wax acetyl alcohol, glyceryl monostearate. Suppositories. A suppository is solid or semi-solid mass intended to be inserted into a body orifice, i.e. rectum, vagina, urethra. Compression is generally used when cocoa butter is used as a base. The fusion method is the principal way that suppositories are made commercially. This method is used primarily for suppositories that contain cocoa butter, PEG, and glycerin gelatin bases. The capacity of molds is determined by melting a sufficient quantity of base over a steam bath, pouring it into the molds, and allowing it to congeal. Thermolabial drugs and insoluble powders. Powders. A pharmaceutical powder is a mixture of finely divided drugs or chemicals in dry form. The powder may be used internally or externally. Milling is the mechanical process of reducing the particle size of solids. Comminution, before mixing with other components, further processing, or incorporation into a final product. Comminution, reducing the particle size of solids. Micromeritics is the study of particles. Trituration, the substance is reduced to small particles by rubbing it in a mortar with a pestle. Pulverization, by intervention substances are reduced and subdivided with an additional material, i.e. solvent, that is easily removed after pulverization. Levigation, the particle size of the substance is reduced by adding a suitable non-solvent, levigating agent, to form a paste. Spatulation, a spatula is used to blend small amounts of powders on a sheet of paper or a bill tile. Geometric dilution is used when potent substances must be mixed with a large amount of diluent. Sifting, powders are mixed by passing them through sifters similar to those used to sift flour. This process results in a light, fluffy product. Usually, it is not acceptable for incorporating potent drugs into a diluent base. Tumbling is the process of mixing powders in a large container rotated by a motorized process. Use in packaging of powders. Depending on their intended use, powders are packaged and dispensed by pharmacists as bulk powders or divided powders. Antacid and laxative powders are used by mixing the directed amount of powder in a portion of liquid, which the patient then drinks. Other powders include douche powders, medicated and non-medicated powders for external use, and dentifrices or dental cleansing powders. Insufflation, the act of blowing a gas, powder or vapor into a body cavity. Tablet design and formulation. Characteristics of ideal tablets: they are free of defects, e.g. chips, cracks, discoloration, contamination, strong enough to withstand the mechanical stresses of production, chemically and physically stable over time, capable of releasing medicinal agents in a predictable and reproducible manner. Tablets are manufactured by wet granulation, dry granulation, or direct compression. Regardless of the method of manufacture, tablets for oral ingestion usually contain excipients, which are components added to the active ingredients that have special function. Binders and adhesives are added in either dry or liquid form to promote granulation or to promote cohesive compacts during direct compression. Disintegrants are added to the tablet formulation to facilitate disintegration when the tablet contacts water in the gastrointestinal tract. Common disintegrants include cornstarch and potato starch. Lubricants reduce friction that occurs between the walls of the tablet and the walls of the dye cavity when the tablet is ejected. Anti-adherents reduce sticking, or adhesion, of the tablet granulation or powder to the faces of the punches or the dye walls. Glidants promote the flow of the tablet granulation or powder by reducing friction among particles. Tablet types and classes. Tablets are classified according to their route of administration, drug delivery system, and form and method of manufacture. Tablets for oral ingestion are designed to be swallowed intact, with the exception of chewable tablets. Compressed tablets are formed by the compression and have no special coating. Multiple compressed tablets are layered or compression coated. Repeat action tablets are layered or compression coated tablets in which the outer layer or shell rapidly disintegrates in the stomach. Delayed action and enteric coated tablets delay the release of a drug from a dosage form. This delay is intended to prevent destruction of the drug by gastric juices, to prevent irritation of the stomach lining by the drug. There are other types of coating including sugar coating, chocolate coating, film-coated tablets, chewable tablets, etc. Processing problems. Capping is the partial or complete separation of the top or bottom crown from the main body of the tablet. Lamination is the separation of a tablet into two or more distinct layers. Picking is the removal of the surface material of a tablet by a punch. Mottling is unequal color distribution, with light or dark areas standing out on an otherwise uniform surface. Friability is the tendency of the tablet to crumble. Friabilators determine friability by allowing the tablet to roll and fall within a rotating tumbling apparatus. The tablets are weighed before and after a specified number of rotations, and the weight loss is determined. Aerosol products. Aerosol products are pressurized dosage forms, and they are designed to deliver drugs systemically or topically with the aid of liquefied or propelled gas. Propellants used in aerosol producers include compressed gases such as carbon dioxide, nitrogen and nitrous oxide, and liquefied gases including saturated hydrocarbons such as N-butane, isobutane, etc. Meter-dose inhalers, MDI. These are devices that allow a drug to be inhaled as a fine mist of drug or drug-containing particles. Controlled release dosage forms. These are also known as delayed release, sustained action, prolonged action, sustained release, etc. These are designed to release drug substance slowly to provide prolonged action in the body. Advantages include fewer problems with patient compliance and use of less total drug. Sustained release forms can be grouped by their pharmaceutical mechanism. Coated beads or granules produced a blood level profile similar to that obtained with multiple dosing. Microencapsulation is a process by which solids, liquids, or gases are encased in microscopic capsules. Conservation is the most common method of microencapsulation, and it occurs when a hydrophilic substance is added to colloidal drug dispersion and causes layering and the formation of microcapsules. Matrix tablets use insoluble plastics or fatty compounds. The most common method of preparation is mixing of the drug with the matrix material followed by compression of the material into tablets. Osmotic systems include the Oro system, ALSA, which is an oral osmotic pump composed of a core tablet and a semi-permeable coating that has a small hole. Ion exchange resin can be complex with drugs by passage of a cationic drug solution through a column that contains resin. The drug is complex to resin by replacement of hydrogen atoms. Complex formation is used for certain drug substances that combine chemically with other agents. Purpose of these episodes not at all for advice or medical suggestions. To provide support for peer pharmacists in training in educational and intellectual stimulating ways. Not at all for medical advice or for medical suggestions. See your local state and board certified physician, PA or NP, and pharmacist for medical advice and suggestions. Grateful and humble to be pursuing further studies as a pharmacist in training in the U.S. These episodes will be under the theme, The Journey to NAPLEX Success. These will cover in summative form key points that stand out to me as I embark on my journey as a pharmacy student and chart a course to NAPLEX success. Again, grateful and humble to be pursuing further studies as a pharmacist in training in the U.S. These episodes will be under the theme, The Journey to NAPLEX Success. These will cover in summative form key points that stand out to me as I embark on my journey as a pharmacy student and chart a course to NAPLEX success. The new chemist becomes a pharmacist in training. The journey to the NAPLEX. The North American Pharmacist Licensure Examination, NAPLEX, is a standard examination created by the National Association of Boards of Pharmacy, NABP, to help individual state boards of pharmacy assess an individual's competency and knowledge so that they may be given a license to practice. Big abbreviations. USP 34, United States Pharmacopoeia 34, Natural Formulary, NF 29. Note: purpose of these episodes not at all for advice or medical suggestions. To provide support for peer pharmacists in training in educational and intellectual stimulating ways. Not at all for medical advice or for medical suggestions. See your local state and board certified physician, PA or NP, and pharmacist for medical advice and suggestions.
Okay, so this will be an addendum to the episode in which we discuss some common abbreviations outlined in pharmacy. Some of these are in Latin, many of these are in Latin. So AA dot, Anna, of each, AD, up to make. So just draw back, AA dot, Anna, which means of each, AD, add,
which means up to or to make. DISP dot dispensateur, dispense means to dispense. DIV dot divator, divide. D dot T dot D, denter talis doses, which means give us such doses. FT fiat, which means to make. Capital M dot mise, which means to mix. N capital N O dot numero, which means number. Non space rep, REP dot, or NR, which both are capitalized, means non-repetitor, and that means do not repeat. QS, quantum sufficient, a sufficient quantity. QSAD, Q.S.AD, quantum sufficient add, a sufficient quantity to make. SIG dot signa, which means to write, in brackets directions on label. So some common abbreviations, you have BSA, body surface area, cm raised to the 3, cubic centimeter or milliliter. F or FL, fluid. Let's go through some more. G is gram, GAL is gallon. GTT, gutter, which means drop. I.U. or IU, international units. LB, libra, which means pound. kg, kilogram. L, liter. M to the second, or capital M to the second, square meter. mcg, microgram. MEQ, milliequivalent. mg, milligram. mg over kg, milligrams as drug per kilogram of body weight. mg over m squared, milligrams as drug per square meter of body surface area. M, capital IU or milli IU, thousandth of an international unit. Capital M, capital I, capital U, million international units. ml, milliliter, ml per H, milliliters of drug administered per hour as through intravenous administration. M, capital OSM, or M, capital OSMOL. So M, capital O, lowercase s, lowercase m, or M, capital O, lowercase s, lowercase m, OL, milliosmoles. So OZ dot, ounce, PT pint, QT quart, SS, or SS with a line over both S's, means 1/2, semisem. TBSP dot, tablespoonful. TSP dot, teaspoonful. Admin, administer. AM, ante meridium, morning. AQ dot, aqua, water, dye, twice a day. C or C with a line over it. Come, which means with. D, in bracket, or dye, which means day. DIL dot, dilutus, dilute. Et, and. H dot or HR dot, aura, which means hour. HS, aura, somni, at bedtime. IC, intercebos, between meals. MIN, dot, minutum, minute. MNN, morning and night. N and V, both N and V are capitalized. Nausea and vomiting. NOCT, dot, nocte, night. NPO, non per os, nothing by mouth. PC, postcebos, after meals. PM, post meridium, afternoon or evening. PO, per os, by mouth or orally. PRN, pro re nata, as needed. Q, quaque, every. Q, capital AM, every morning. Q4H or Q8H, etc. Every number in brackets hours. QID, quarter in die, 4 times a day. QID, quarter in die, 4 times a day. Rep dot, repetitor, repeat. S, sine, without. SID, semel in die, once a day. SOS, C, opposite, if there is need, as needed. SOS, C, opposite, if there is need, or as needed. Stat, stamnen, immediately. TID, tur and die, 3 times a day. Ut dict, dictum, as directed. WK dot, week. So APAP, acetaminophen, so a PAP, acetaminophen, ASA, aspirin, AZT, zidovudine, EES, erythromycin, ethyl succinate, HC, hydrocortisone, HCTZ, hydrochlorothiazide, MTX, methotrexate, NSAID, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. So MTX, methotrexate, NSAID, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. NTG, nitroglycerin. So clinical abbreviations, you have AFib, atrial fibrillation, ADR, adverse drug reaction. You also have BM, bowel movement. All of these are capitalized. BP, blood pressure. BS, blood sugar. CAD, coronary artery disease. CHD, coronary heart disease. CHF, congestive heart failure. COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Okay, COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. GERD, gastrointestinal reflux disease. CRF, chronic renal failure. CV, cardiovascular. ENT, air, nose, and throat. GI, gastrointestinal. GFR, glomerular filtration rate. GU, genitourinary. HA, headache. HBP, heart rate. HR, high blood pressure. HRT, hormone replacement therapy. HT or HTN, hypertension. HT or HTN, hypertension. IOP, intraocular pressure. MI, myocardial ischemia / infarction. So MI, myocardial ischemia / infarction. OA, osteoarthritis. PT, patient. QL, quality of life. So P is capitalized, T is lowercase, patient. QL, quality of life. RA, rheumatoid arthritis. SOB, shortness of breath. And that means dextrose 5% in lactated ringers. D5NS, dextrose 5% in normal saline, in brackets 0.9% sodium chloride. D5W, dextrose 5% in water. D10W, dextrose 10% in water. ELIX dot, elixir INJ dot, so INJ dot, injection. NS, normal saline. Half NS, half strength normal saline. Oint or UNGT, unct, that means, so unct, UNGT means unguentum, and that means ointment. So UNGT dot stands for unguentum, which means ointment. PULV dot pelvis, L dot solutio, solution. SUPP dot suppositorium, suppository. SUSP dot suspension, SUSP dot suspension. SYR dot syrupus, syrup. CAB dot tabletta, tablet. So routes / location of administration. A dot D dot aureus dextro, right ear. A dot S dot aureus sinistro, left ear. A dot U dot aureus utro, each ear, or both. Capital CIVI, continuous, in brackets 24 hours, intravenous infusion. ID, intradermal. INJ, injection. IM, intramuscular. IT, intrathecal. IV, intravenous. IVB, intravenous bolus. IV drip, intravenous infusion. IVP, intravenous push. IVPB, intravenous piggyback. NGT, nasogastric tube. NGT, nasogastric tube. O.D. oculodextro, right eye. O.S. oculosinistro, left eye. O.U. oculoutro, each eye. So both P.O. or PO, per os, by mouth. REC. Or prorecto, rectal or rectum. So REC. Or prorecto, which means rectal or rectum. SL, both S and L are capitalized. Sublingual. SUBQ or SC, subcutaneously. TOP. Of the addendum.
Okay, this is another addendum to the episodes entitled The Journey to Naplex Success. This is another addendum. We're going to be talking about agonists and antagonists and all their different flavors. So agonists are drugs that bind to a cell's receptor in order to mimic the effect of a substance the body naturally produces that binds to the same receptor. Two main classes of receptor ligands in pharmacology. You have agonists and antagonists, and the references for this episode will be listed in the episode description. So agonists tend to be smaller molecules that affect the activation of receptors. Note, this may result in stimulation or inhibition of the cell and organ function. Full agonists produce maximal biological response. Full agonists produce maximal biological response. Has maximal positive intrinsic activity, aka efficacy. Partial agonists, whereas partial agonists produce partial maximal biological response as compared to full agonists. So partial agonists produce partial maximal biological response. Partial agonists have lower positive intrinsic activity, and they may competitively inhibit full agonists, preventing maximal biological response. So let's run through that again. Full agonists produce maximal biological response. It has maximal positive intrinsic activity, so efficacy, and partial agonists produce partial maximal biological response as compared to full agonists. They have lower positive intrinsic activity, and they may competitively inhibit full agonists, preventing maximal biological response. If the partial agonist is bound to a receptor, the full agonist typically cannot bind. Why use a partial agonist? Full agonists may cause too much activation, resulting in toxicity or receptor adaptation or prolonged use, like desensitization and downregulation. The lower efficacy of partial agonists minimizes these complications. Now you also have inverse agonists. These produce opposite biological response to that of the endogenous agonist. Has negative intrinsic activity. Okay. So let's talk about antagonists. Antagonists tend to be larger molecules producing inhibitory effects. An inhibitory effect. There are antagonists that act at the receptor, also known as receptor antagonists. So let's make sure we keep this thing in focus. So antagonists, by definition, have zero intrinsic activity. Antagonists, by definition, have zero intrinsic activity. Full agonists have intrinsic activity of 100%. Maximum biological response. Partial agonists have intrinsic activity greater than 0 but less than 100. Partial agonists can competitively inhibit a full agonist. You also have inverse agonists, so you have intrinsic activity less than 0. And then you also have non-competitive antagonists, and those can be unsurmountable, depending on them being irreversible, allosteric. We will get to that. So let's keep going. Just a quick note: efficacy is referring to different levels of biological response or intracellular signaling when they occupy the same receptor. Intrinsic activity refers to the maximal possible effect that can be produced by a drug. Intrinsic activity is determined by the drug-receptor relationship for a drug that acts on the receptor. Okay, you also have efficacy. Efficacy, you also have affinity, which is the measure of the ability of the drug to bind to its molecular target. So the affinity is the measure of the ability of the drug to bind to its molecular target. The VC50, which is the measure of the potency of the drug. So let's keep going. Antagonists. They tend to be larger molecules exhibiting inhibitory effects. There are antagonists that act at the receptor. These are known as receptor antagonists. Antagonists do not have intrinsic activity. They simply block the agonists from binding. So if we think about these things on a spectrum, we think about efficacy related to the endogenous ligand, you have your full inverse agonist at less than 0, your partial inverse agonist still less than 0, you have your antagonist at 0, and you have your partial agonist, which is greater than 0 and less than 100. We're talking about intrinsic activity, and then you have your full agonist at 100%. Okay, intrinsic activity, positive intrinsic activity. So competitive antagonists, reversible or surmountable, binds to a receptor at the same site as the endogenous or pharmacological agonist, blocking agonist binding and therefore receptor activation. So it binds to a receptor at the same site as an endogenous or pharmacological agonist, blocking agonist binding and therefore receptor activation. Okay, so if you were to look at the plot of an agonist versus agonist effect, when you include the competitive antagonist, it shifts to the right. These are ideal scenarios, of course. Okay, antagonism can be reversed by increasing the amount or dose of agonist. Thus, we have the surmountability. This is talking about competitive antagonists. So, competitive antagonists do not affect agonist efficacy. They do decrease affinity and potency. So, competitive antagonists do not affect agonist efficacy. They do decrease affinity and potency. Competitive antagonists have affinity or potency for the receptor, but not intrinsic activity. By definition, an antagonist does not have intrinsic activity. Receptors can interact with agonists or the competitive antagonists. Okay. And that is exclusive. Okay. Non-competitive receptor antagonists. Non-competitive receptor antagonists. Non-competitive receptor antagonists, unsurmountable. So irreversible, binds to the same site as the agonist, not easily displaced, generally irreversible due to the covalent bonds between the antagonist and the receptor, reducing the number of receptors available to the agonist. So just a quick aside, picture a graph of an agonist versus a biological response, with your minimum toxic concentration referenced and noted, and your minimum effective concentration referenced and noted. So let's just think about that. Think about that. And you have your MEC below and your MTC above. So MTC, minimum toxic concentration, minimum effective concentration. This is just picture this graph with these points noted on it. Okay. So with the full agonist and partial agonist starting at the same XY point, ideally, the partial agonist will plateau between the MTC and MEC. The minimum toxic concentration and minimum effective concentration, whereas the full agonist will have a higher biological response and plateaus higher. Okay, let's keep going. In the absence of stereoreceptors, the dose response curve will show lower maximum when the agonist is combined with a non-competitive antagonist. However, in the presence of stereoreceptors, there's gradually or gradated upon increasing non-competitive antagonists, a decrease in agonist effect. So, however, in the presence of stereoreceptors, there is gradually or gradated upon increasing non-competitive antagonists, a decrease in agonist effect. So, allosteric non-competitive antagonists. So, allosteric is referring to the other side, and orthosterics is referring to the right binding site. So, binding to the allosteric site modifies the conformation of the primary site, with negative allosteric antagonists resulting in an altered conformation as less responsive to the agonist. So let's wrap this up. Physiological antagonists, molecules that do not bind the same receptor and as the endogenous ligand, but produce an effect opposite to the agonist effect. Molecules that do not bind the same receptor of the endogenous ligand, but produce an effect opposite to the agonist effect. So this is the physiological antagonist. Now a chemical antagonist, as we conclude. Drugs do not interact with agonist receptor, but rather reduce the concentration of the agonist by forming a chemical complex. Let's go through that again. Physiological antagonists, molecules that do not bind the same receptor of the endogenous ligand, but produce an effect Opposite to the agonist effect, chemical antagonist drugs do not interact with agonist receptor, but rather reduce the concentration of an agonist by forming a chemical complex. So hopefully this helped. These are important terms. It's important to know these things. These are like, in a way, these are very important. Very, very important. So all the best. Take care. This is the conclusion of this addendum. Welcome to the New Chemist podcast.
Bienvenidos al podcast del nuevo químico.
Καλώς ήρθατε στο podcast του New Chemist. Welkom bij de podcast van The New Chemist.
Bienvenue sur le podcast du nouveau chimiste.
Bem-vindo ao podcast do novo químico.
Welcome to the New Chemist podcast. Work hard. Be value-driven. You can do it. You can grow and learn it. You can be the difference you and your community needs. Don't give up. We are here, rooting and cheering for you. Don't give up.
Travaillez dur. Soyez axé sur la valeur. Tu peux le faire. Vous pouvez grandir et l'apprendre. Vous pouvez être la différence dont vous et votre communauté avez besoin. N'abandonnez pas. Nous sommes ici pour vous encourager et vous encourager. N'abandonnez pas.
Trabalhar duro. Seja orientado por valores. Você consegue. Você pode crescer e aprender. Você pode ser a diferença que você e sua comunidade precisam. Não desista. Estamos aqui torcendo e torcendo por você. Não desista.
Δούλεψε σκληρά. Να οδηγείτε στην αξία. Μπορείς να το κάνεις. Μπορείτε να μεγαλώσετε και να το μάθετε. Μπορείτε να είστε η διαφορά που χρειάζεστε εσείς και η κοινότητά σας. Μην τα παρατάς. Είμαστε εδώ για να σας ζητοκραυγάσουμε. Μην τα παρατάς.
Trabaja duro. Sea impulsado por el valor. Puedes hacerlo. Puedes crecer y aprenderlo. Usted puede ser la diferencia que usted y su comunidad necesitan. No te rindas, estamos aquí animándote y animándote. No te rindas.
Werk hard. Wees waardegedreven. Je kunt het. Je kunt groeien en leren. U kunt het verschil zijn dat u en uw gemeenschap nodig hebben. Geef niet op. We zijn hier om voor je te roten en te juichen. Geef niet op.
Work hard. Be value-driven. You can do it. You can grow and learn it. You can be the difference you and your community needs. Don't give up. We are here rooting and cheering for you. Don't give up.
Thanks for listening. We're glad you were able to tune into this podcast. Once again, this is the New Chemist, where we discuss chemistry, which simply put is the science of change, as well as the other sciences, careers, community, research, and COVID-19. Thanks again for listening. Note, the views on this podcast represent those of my guest and I.
You are very important, especially to us here at the New Chemist podcasting group. You listening in is significant.
Vous êtes très important, surtout pour nous ici au New Chemist Podcasting Group. Votre écoute est significative.
Usted es muy importante, especialmente para nosotros aquí en The New Chemist Podcasting Group. Usted escuchando, es significativo.
Você é muito importante. Especialmente para nós do The New Chemist Podcasting Group. Você ouvindo, é significativo.
Είστε πολύ σημαντικοί, ειδικά για εμάς εδώ στο The New Chemist Podcasting Group. Το να ακούς είναι σημαντικό.
Sie sind sehr wichtig, besonders für uns hier bei The New Chemist Podcasting Group. Es ist wichtig, dass du zuhörst.
Je bent erg belangrijk, vooral voor ons hier bij The New Chemist Podcasting Group. Dat je meeluistert, is veelbetekenend.
You are very important, especially to us here at the New Chemist Podcasting Group. You listening in is significant.